I had just graduated and was thinking, what is a teenager supposed to do with her life now? It had become morning, and I could tell by the birds singing. I decided to sleep some more minutes. There was nothing exciting waiting for me outside of my room anyways. All of my friends had gone on their summer vacation. But we can never have vacations. Mom and Dad are always working. I have no one to hang out with. The boy that I liked, he had started dating someone. What a shame. I had created scenarios in my mind, and I believed that we would make a perfect couple. Maybe after he breaks up with her? Who knows? Relationships barely last these days. I know I am being selfish, but this is my only hope. My eyes are wide awake. How can I sleep when I have such thoughts running through my mind? Plus, I could hear that someone was texting on my phone. I looked for my phone for some good minutes and finally found it. My room was so dark from my curtains. I can't sleep when it becomes very sunny. I took my phone and I saw that it had become noon. Mom would kill me if she found out. Luckily she is at work. What day is today? It can't be Sunday. The chat group where all of my friends are had texted and had been awake since the first hours of the mornings. They had sent hundreds of pictures of them either enjoying themselves at the beach or eating and trying new food. They were getting that perfect tan. I was jealous. What am I supposed to do during summer? Plus, I was home alone. Yes, I don't even have a sibling. Mom and Dad weren't able to have another child. Sometimes it makes me think if I am adopted, but then again, there is a video of my mom literally giving birth to me. It is beautiful but terrifying at the same time. What a way of starting my morning. I can't think straight without my cup of coffee. So, I decided to get up. I was still in my pajamas and could barely walk. My body was aching. I had stayed all night watching my 100 TV shows. I was walking while checking my phone and I almost stepped on my kitty. Sometimes I forget that we have a kitty. She is going to turn 5 years soon. She must have been hungry. I woke up so late. So I fed her and gave her some love. Then, it was time to feed me. I opened the fridge, and there was nothing there. Nothing that I liked. But luckily, there was an avocado, and I could still make my toast with it. I had also made my morning coffee. I opened the living room window to get some fresh air. The kitty jumped immediately. She loves to stay outside. I live in Italy countryside, and the views are crazy here. Our neighborhood is very aesthetic. But the only problem is that there isn't so much to do here. All I can do is get out and stay on my porch. That's what I did that day, too, not knowing that my life would change forever. As I was scrolling through my phone, I came across a competition or something like that. An agency travel had posted saying that 2 lucky persons have the chance to win a free trip to Bora Bora. In case you don't know, Bora Bora is an island, and many people go there to spend their vacations. But not just any people, rich people. The deadline for applying to this competition was the day that I was reading it. They must have already chosen the 2 lucky people, I thought. But I got nothing to lose, so I applied anyway and moved on with my boring life. It was a sunny day, so I thought I'd put on my bikini and tan in our yard. Our yard can't be seen by any of our neighbors. Hours must have had gone by, and I must have fallen asleep. I woke from the sound of my mother waking me up, calling my name, Enora, you have been sunburned. I woke up, and I couldn't even touch parts of my body. Perfect. Just what I needed. We began to eat dinner, and my parents were complaining about how I was doing nothing with life. They said that I should start applying for a job and not just hang out at home all day. They don't understand that I want a job, but I haven't found the right one. I couldn't have dinner anymore, so I decided to go to my safe space, my room. There, nowhere judges me. The kitty followed me, so at least I wasn't alone. She was staring at me like she could sense that deep inside, I was sad. And what is the best thing to do when you're feeling sad? Clean. At least that's what I do. I clean my room, so I could somehow clean my thoughts too. I cleaned and folded my clothes, then through the window, I noticed that it had become dark. Another day had gone, just like that. I jumped into my bed. I had already had my pajamas on. I took my laptop and watched whatever I had paused the other night. I waited till I couldn't hear a noise and then went to the living room and took some snacks with me. This is a perfect night for me. This is what I enjoy the most. I had fallen asleep without noticing. Someone was texting me non-stop. It was 7 a.m. or something like this. What could have happened? Were mom and dad calling me so I could wake up early and have my life on the right track? I tried to ignore it, but it was not letting me sleep. So, I took the phone in my hands with my eyes closed, figuring out what was happening. A lot of people had texted me. My heart skipped a beat, thinking that something terrible had happened. But, it turned out to be something completely different. The beginning of something beautiful. There were a few emails from that travel agency, and they had told me that I was one of the people that had won the trip to Bora Bora. I couldn't believe my eyes. As I was reading the long email, a number called me. It was the agency telling me the details. They said I should be ready tonight after midnight because that's when the plane will take off. What will mom and dad think about this? They would let me go, right? But, mom and dad would be home after some hours, and I didn't want to tell them the news over the phone. So, I was just walking around the house, thinking of what I should do. When did I ever get this lucky? I couldn't sleep anymore, even though it was 8 a.m. I wanted to think positively and started getting ready for the trip. It took me a while to get my suitcase ready. It was a 3-day trip. I didn't want to miss anything that I would need. Then, I went outside our door, to the porch, barefoot, waiting for mom and dad. Mom and dad work together, so they always come home simultaneously. Finally, I saw my parents' car pulled over in the neighborhood. They were home finally. I walked towards the door, not caring that I was barefoot. I was exciting, talking like a kid, telling them that I had won a free trip to Bora Bora. But, I didn't get the response that I was hoping for. Like every parent, even mom and dad had a million questions. Who was I gonna go with? How do we know that this was not a lie? How can you win a free trip this easily? Mom and dad said they would not let me go unless they talked to agency travel. How embarrassing. They were acting like I was a kid. But, if that's what it takes, then all right. They talked for hours with the agency, and mom and dad trusted them. So, just like that, my whole summer began to change for the better. Now I had a flight to catch. Mom and dad drove me there and made me promise that I'd be texting them every day. And just like that, I got into the plane, wondering who the other person that had also won the trip was. After some hours, I arrived where I was supposed to be. The agency said that a man would have a letter with my name and take care of the person who had won the trip and me. I got off the plane, and I immediately noticed my name on the letter. The man seemed nice and congratulated me for winning the trip. The man said that we couldn't go without the other person who had won the trip. So, we waited for some minutes. Now, the man was holding the name of a boy, Lucas. It was a very hot day, and all I wanted to do was get into a very cold pool and relax. Then, a tall, French boy of the same age as me approached us. We shared eye contact. He was the other person who had won the trip. The man from the agency called us Shamrock, saying that we were lucky for winning this and that we would have the time of our lives. We got into a car ride for about 20 minutes, till we arrived at our rooms. The boy, Lucas, seemed to be very friendly and was smiling. He had a camera with him and said he had a YouTube channel where he posted all of his adventures. He seemed like an exciting guy. Then, we arrived to Paradise. The beach was so clean, and the views were crazy. There weren't many people, just what I liked. The man followed us to our rooms and gave us just one key. We were confused. Then, the man explained that the people who won the trip were supposed to sleep in the same room. The agency never mentioned this before, and we didn't know what to do. How could I share a room with a stranger in a different country? But the boy, Lucas, made me feel safe and said that we had to grab this opportunity no matter what. He insisted that he would be the one to sleep in the bathroom. And that's how we settled it. But, besides this one problem, everything else was just alright. The room was beautiful and clean, and we got to eat in our bed. Lucas was a hilarious guy, and I could tell that we would have a great time together. He would take me pictures and tell me how to pose for my Instagram. He would always compliment me every time that he would see me. He would compliment my outfits and makeup. There were times when it was awkward. We would be in complete silence. But a girl and a boy can be friends, right? We didn't hang out together as much on the first day, but the other days differed. We used to dress up together and eat dinner, then we would always drink inside of our hotel room. We had fallen asleep together in bed, and we didn't know until we woke up. When we saw each other, we busted into laughter. But sleeping on the same bed didn't seem very odd anymore. We decided to go scuba diving one day since everyone does this when visiting Bora Bora. Life under the sea was beautiful and scary at the same time. We got the chance to see a lot of sea creatures. But then, we realized that it had begun to rain. We had to get out of the water. We went by a big tree and stayed there until the rain stopped. He gave me one of the shirts that he had in his handbag, and then, suddenly, Lucas came close to me and kissed me. I don't know why I didn't push him. I let him kiss me. That's when I realized that I might like Lucas. Lucas said he had wanted to kiss me since the first time he saw me. We went to our hotel room without saying a word. Why did we have to kiss when we both knew we had to fly back home the next day? Lucas lived in France, and I in Italy. There was no way how this could work. We both fell asleep thinking about this. But, unfortunately, the day for us to come back home arrived. But we have made a promise to each other. We promised that we would text and write letters to each other every day. And that's what we did. It had been months since the last time I saw Lucas, but we have always been in touch during those months. I am writing on the plane because I am on my way to France to see Lucas and meet his family. I have never been to France before, and I am very exciting. It's true when they say that love is found in the most unexpected place and times. The man that worked on the agency that called us Shamrock was right. We had become the luckiest people in the world.
You might think that for my 18th birthday, my parents gifted me a car, or let's say, a dog. I love dogs. I have always loved dogs. But no, my family is nothing like the other families. They gifted me something that would change my life forever. I was born and lived all my life in New Orleans, together with Mom and Dad. I am the only child. Mom and Dad tried for another baby, but they were never successful. God, I'd give anything to have a sibling. A sister. Mom and Dad have always been religious and lived by rules. But I am nothing like them. I can't lie and say that I am not rebellious. I can't lie and say that I don't believe that there is so much in life rather than living for God. Mom says that I have always been stubborn, and I had never followed the rules and wanted to do whatever I wanted. That's why I have been homeschooled since I can even remember. Mom and Dad work in our town's church, and most of the time, I was home alone and was not allowed to go out. I was not allowed to have friends because they would influence me negatively. Was it that bad to have a friend? Someone to hang out with. My only friend was my teacher who came into our house. Plus, she was very old. The only time I left home was when I visited Mom and Dad in the church and helped them out. But there was still something that I liked to do. My sweet little escape from everything is when I secretly watch TV shows every night. Even though Mom and Dad say that I should not spend time on social media and that I should not be watching TV. But I learned a lot from them. I get to see what people are doing out there. I feel very left behind. I had never kissed anyone, never had a boyfriend. I had never gone to a club and danced till I couldn't feel my legs. I feel like my youth has gone away. But, one day, everything changed. As I was staring from the window of my room, something caught my eye. New neighbors had come to our neighborhood, just across my house. They were one big family, and they seemed happy. They were joking around and laughing with each other. Suddenly, a boy of my age gets out of the car. He was very tall and had a beautiful smile. He began talking to his siblings, I suppose. I wanted to hear what they were talking about, so I opened the window slowly so they couldn't hear or see me. I got to know his name, Hayden. Hayden was the most handsome boy that I've ever seen. He was the only boy of my age in my neighborhood. As I looked at him, a bird came fast flying towards my room window, and I screamed. It scared me. The neighbors must have heard me and asked me if I was all right. I laid on the ground, saying that I was okay, hoping that they didn't see me. Days had gone by, and I would always see Hayden with his siblings. One day, as I was in the middle of class, I heard someone knocking on the door. Weird. Nobody ever comes to our house. I opened the door, and guess what? It was Hayden. We both were surprised when we saw each other. He had knocked at our door because his mother needed salt. She was cooking. I rushed to our kitchen, took a little plate, and put some salt on it. I don't know why I felt stressed. The woman who tutored me noticed and asked why my cheeks were blushed. Was it that obvious? Mom and Dad sleep early, but that's when I have my me time. I was on my laptop and put my headphones on. Mom and Dad think that I need the laptop for my studying, but little do they know that I watch my favorite series every night. Do you know that feeling when you have your headphones on, and it looks like something is moving? Like noises are coming from somewhere. Well, that's what was happening to me. Was Dad coming to check up on me to see if I was sleeping? I couldn't risk it. So I left my laptop and decided to sleep. Then, that noise happened again. I turned my lamp on and came closer to my window to hear what was happening. Someone threw a rock at my window. I opened it, and it was my neighbor, Hayden. He has had his plate in his hand, our plate, and wanted to return it. But why so late? It was after midnight. He said that he had something to say to me too and that I should come out. I was looking like crazy but wanted to get over it. I went out, took the plate, and wanted to go in. He grabbed my hand and said we should get to know each other. We talked there for some minutes, but I could tell that he was my type. We had been watching the same TV series without even knowing. Dad must have heard us talking because he came to the door telling me, angry, that I needed to get back to my room. Dad didn't even say hi to Hayden. Dad told me that I shouldn't be not talking to that boy. Why wouldn't I? He seemed like a good friend. I thought my life was terrible, but I didn't know that it could get even worse. I was excited that I was going to turn 18-year-old. Maybe now I could move out and live exactly how I wanted. But, I didn't know that Mom and Dad had already planned my gift. Not just my gift, but my whole life. I blew on my birthday candles, and my parents said they had a surprise for me. A surprise that was far away from our house and that we needed to drive for some minutes. What could it be? A million thoughts were running through my mind, but I still had no clue where we were going. I was excited. By the end of the ride, I was blindfolded. Then, the car stopped, and Dad screamed, "We're here." They took off my blindfold, I opened my eyes, and the first thing I see is a massive, old building. There was a big cross on top of the building. No one was around, and I had no idea where we were. Mom and Dad said that we had arrived at a convent. I turn 18-year-old, and all I get to do is visit a convent. I didn't want to complain. Mom and Dad were happy, laughing all the time. I acted like I was enjoying it too. Then, after some minutes of looking around the place, a group of nuns came and talked to us. They were respectful and made us feel welcomed. But Mom and Dad said that this wasn't the day's only surprise. They took me to a room where it was filled with nuns. They were praying. Dad waited for us outside, and I could tell that he got emotional. I couldn't understand why. There was a nun there, an old woman, who had some clothes in her hand, which looked like what the nun wore. She handed me the clothes and said, "Welcome." Mom noticed that I was confused and told me that they had applied and got me into the convent as a nun. I was still confused and did not understand what my mother was saying. I thought that Mom was joking. Since when did I want to become a nun? How about for once I make decisions on my own? But it was already settled. I couldn't go back anymore. The nun gave me the clothes and made me wear them. My eyes were full of tears. I was begging my mom to take me back home, but she looked like she didn't want to hear anything that I was saying. She said that I should accept this gift from God because otherwise, our family would be disappointed. She had brought a suitcase with the things that I'd be needing and said that she would come to visit me every month. And just like that, Mom and Dad left me alone in this convent. What did I do to deserve this? The nuns tried to calm me down and said that the first days were always the hardest. They followed me to the room where I would be sleeping. The building was massive and there were a lot of rooms. The hallways to the room were dark and scary. It barely had any windows. Then, they opened the door to my new room, to my new life. The nuns gave me a paper, and a schedule was written there. The time when I must wake up, pray, sleep, and do other stuff. There was a girl too. My new roommate. The girl was the same age as me. I took a look in the mirror, and I couldn't recognize myself. The room was cold, and I could barely sleep that night. I missed my room. The following day was even more challenging. I had to wake up early and move on with the day. I noticed that the nuns there made everyone new to all the work. They made us cook and clean. It made me feel like I had become a maid rather than a nun. They knew how to be rude too. I did not like the place at all. But luckily, I had started talking with my roommate. She didn't want to be there either. She had come because she had no place to go since her family had passed in a car accident. One night, she told me a secret and made me promise to not tell anyone. Under her pillow, she had hidden a phone, where she would spend all the time. We weren't allowed to have phones, but somehow she made it without anyone noticing. I opened my socials to see what was going on. I had a new text message. Hayden had texted me 2 or 3 times, saying that he had missed seeing me in my window. So, all this time he saw me. I texted him and told him everything that had happened to me. Maybe he could help me somehow. But, we couldn't stay on the phone for a very long time. Someone might see us. I had started praying 5 times a day, cooked, cleaned, and even helped with the gardening. I had actually started to enjoy gardening. There was a huge yard filled with trees and flowers. It was beautiful. It's where I would spend most of my time. But, every time I was out, I'd see for ways to get out of there. I couldn't stay anymore. A big door got locked every night, and barely anyone could get access to the key. But I could still crawl by the walls, but the walls were massive, and somebody needed to hold me in case I'd fall. My mind was full of ideas, but none seemed to work. I was texting every night with Hayden, and he couldn't believe what was happening to me. He would say that he would come there and help me out every night. But I was scared of what could have happened. But, one day, after fulfilling every duty, I came back into the room, and my roommate wasn't there. I hadn't seen her all day and wondered where she might have been. Then, I searched under her pillow and noticed that her phone was missing too. Could she escape without me? Could she really do this to me? I hope this could have happened because my eyes witnessed something even worse. After some hours, the nun brought back my roommate because she could barely walk. Her long white dress was stained with blood. The nurses had beaten her because they had found out that she had kept a phone. We couldn't stay there any longer. But we didn't know who to ask for help. A month had passed when I heard some noises through my window one night. I was so tired from doing all the work all day, so I tried to avoid it. But the noise didn't seem to stop. I woke up, and I noticed a man standing in front of the room. It was Hayden. He had come to save me. I woke my roommate because there was no way that I could let her there. We decided to make a rope from our sheets and get out of the window. It wasn't easy, but we made it. Our feet had touched the ground. Now it was time to pass the big walls. But my strength came to life when I knew that Hayden was behind those walls. I knew I had to climb as hard and fast as possible because freedom was waiting for me out there. It was dark and so silent. We had to be careful. This way, I had reached the top of the wall. I could see Hayden and a parked car there. He smiled and opened his arms, saying, "Jump." I jumped without thinking twice. Gosh, how much I loved Hayden at that moment. Then, the roommate jumped from the wall, and we immediately got into the car. No one was behind us. No one was following us. We were free. We had opened the windows of the cars, and we were screaming with joy. It was a chilly summer night. We were driving, not knowing where we were going. What will Mom and Dad think of me? Can I trust my own parents? We couldn't go home just yet. We fell asleep in the car in the middle of nowhere. The car was more comfortable than all the beds in the convent. But we woke up with terrible news. My name and my roommate's name were everywhere. Everyone was searching for us. Mom and Dad must have found out that I had run away. Will they understand when I say that I want to live my own life how I want? That I want to go to concerts and dance till it becomes sunrise. This doesn't make a bad person, right? God knows what the future holds for me. Hi guys, my name is Riri, and I have just turned 16-year-old. I just wanted to share some pieces of my life with you, how I found love at a very young age. I want to have my story written, so my future kids will know every detail of it. I was born and raised in Pristina, together with my big family. I live with my mom and dad, 2 sisters, and my little brother. My little brother's birthday was some months ago, and we decided to buy him a Labrador puppy, and we decided to name it Rico. I didn't know how much of a responsibility it was to raise a dog until now. But we love it. We are enjoying it every minute. This year hasn't been the greatest for us, because our grandparents have passed away from the COVID. Our home feels empty without them. But, no matter what, we should move on with our lives. And that's what we did. Days in my life are very chaotic. My parents are always working, so they aren't home all the time. My mother is a nurse, and sometimes she works during the night. My father is a waiter at a restaurant near our house. I am the second child. My bigger sister is married and has kids, but she often visits us. That means that my little sister and brother are kind of my responsibility. I love them, but sometimes they get on my nerves. They are crazy and annoying. I like having my life in control. I want my 8 hours of sleep and my healthy breakfast. I want to read my favorite book and watch my favorite series. I enjoy talking my usual evening walks with our dog. But recently I haven't had the chance to do the things that I love. It's impossible. When my grandma and grandpa were alive, it was easier for me. Because they were home all the time, and they would take care of us. I became in charge too soon. Even though I hate school and I hate waking up early, it is still my escape. My escape from everything, from my home. It's where I can be a typical 16-year-old for some hours. Because, at home, I usually cook or take care of my siblings. High school is easy for me. It is not what I accepted. I used to see all of those movies saying that it is a nightmare. But, no. It is the opposite. I have made some very great friends that I know are gonna last forever. I am a very outgoing person, so it has never been a problem for me to make friends. I have been in a very short relationship, only once. He was my first kiss, but I regret it all my life. It was so meaningless. From that moment, I promised myself that I would never get in a relationship unless I knew that it would last. Wanna know another good escape besides school? Months ago, just some blocks away from my house, a coffee shop had opened. It is the cutest coffee shop that I have ever seen. It gives me good vibes. At first, I only went there to wait while my siblings would come back from school. But, now, it had become my sweet little escape. I go there every day after school, on the same spot. I like to sit by the window and enjoy the view, especially when it is raining. I stay there for hours. Sometimes I lose track of time. But, it has become my second home. I would go there with friends, but most of the time, I am alone. I used to hate going places alone. It felt so weird. Once I read a quote saying that if you are brave enough to eat alone at a restaurant, you can do anything in life. And, that's the truth. Now I am used to it, and I love my own company. It is peaceful. But, here in Pristina, people are not used to seeing people who are alone at a coffee shop. I often catch people looking at me strangely. One day, I was staying there, minding my own business. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I noticed a note on the desk where I was staying. At first, I thought that that was the bill, but no. I opened it, and someone had written saying, "Hi." Hi. What does that mean? Was that for me? I looked around the bar, and nobody was there, just the workers that worked in the shop. I asked for the bill and asked the waiter if he had seen anything. He said no, but he said that we could look at the cameras. I didn't want that. It wasn't a big deal, just a little bit curious. I went home, but I tried not to think about this. The next day had come, and I had just finished school for the day. I didn't know if I wanted to go to my favorite coffee shop because I didn't know who could it be. But it could be someone just joking around, so why wouldn't I go? I went there, and that day, there were many people, and I barely found a seat. I ordered the usual, an iced frappe coffee. I read some chapters of the book that I was reading and went home. This time nobody had left me a note, and nobody had talked to me. So, for a while I had forgotten all about that note. Some days had gone by, and no note. Until one day, someone had put a sticker on my laptop, saying, "Tell me your name, and put this note under the table so I can know." I didn't know if I should like this or be afraid of this. I started to not feel safe there anymore. It felt like I was being watched all the time. I went out of the shop, and I was looking left and right all the time, seeing if someone was following me. But no one was following me, luckily. I decided to not go there anymore, so maybe that person would have given up. I didn't go there for weeks. Then, I went there with one of my friends, but she couldn't stay very long. I decided to stay there and just see if someone would come. I didn't even go to the bathroom. I stayed there, and nothing happened. I asked for the bill, and guess what? On the bill, there was a note saying, "I was worried about you, where were you?" I was shocked and asked for the waiter who had written this. The waiter said that he couldn't tell me. But he said that a guy that always came here wanted to write to me. He said that he got paid to not tell names. I decided to finish this and write him back. I put a note under the desk where I was staying, saying, "Who are you?" I was curious more than ever. The next day I went to the coffee shop, and the only free spot left was where I usually sit. What a coincidence. I sat there, and the first thing that I did was put my hands under the table and see if I had a note. There was a note saying, "I can't tell you my name yet, but I want to know more about you." I replied, "What do you want to know about me, and why?" I put the note under the desk and continued with my day. Now I had another reason to go to the coffee shop. I don't know why, but I found this so interesting and exciting. My life felt like I was in a movie. The next day, that person had left another note saying that the reason why they wanted to get to know me was that I had looked mysterious. I had no idea who could it be. A girl? Alright, I can never have too many friends. A boy? An old man? I was dying from curiosity because that person had seen me before, but I had no idea how they looked. I decided to write and ask about whether it was a boy or a girl. He was a boy, but 2 years older than me. He said that his name was Ron. Days were going by, and we were passing notes every day. He seemed like a lovely person. I learned a lot about him. He was a lot like me. He said that that coffee shop was his favorite place too. It wasn't just little notes anymore, we would write 2 front and back pages about our life. But I couldn't tell why he didn't want to meet. I couldn't be the first one to say that, so I waited. I was living for what will tomorrow bring. But, one day, as I was in class, my teacher called me out because my mother had come to take me. I didn't know anything about this. I went out, and I saw my whole family outside. I knew that something bad had happened because my mother had a strange look on her face. My aunt had died, and we all needed to go there. We were so sad because she had a very beautiful soul. My aunt lived so far from my city. She lived in a village. My mother said that we had to go and stay there for 3 days. And that's what we did. But that meant that I would not hear from Roni. I didn't have time to go to the coffee shop and explain to him where I would be the next few days. We had to be there immediately. We arrived at my aunt's, and I couldn't stop thinking about him, which made me realize that I liked someone that I had never seen before. I couldn't stop thinking how worried he was. Those 3 days had gone very slowly, and I was finally back at my old life. The first thing that I did was go to the coffee shop. Roni had left me a lot of letters. He thought that I decided to not do this anymore, and he had written a lot saying how much he missed me. I wrote him back and told him exactly what happened to me and that I was hoping to hear from him again. The next day I saw that he had written to me immediately. Months went by, and we were having so much fun communicating this way. It was so romantic. I decided to tell my friends about what was happening to me. But I didn't get the reaction that I was hoping for. They said how dumb I am and that I shouldn't have believed a word that that guy had spoken. They said that it could be someone that was playing and messing with me. They found it weird how he didn't ask me to meet up with him. It was weird, but I didn't want to admit it. The words of my friends had gotten into my mind, and I decided to write and ask him to meet. I didn't want to sound desperate, but I was curious. I went into the coffee shop, and I was scared to see what he had said. Maybe he didn't want to meet with me at all. I got in and sat in my usual place, and there was a note there. I opened it, and guess what? A note said, "Look upon your left." I looked up, and a blonde guy was smiling and waving at me awkwardly. Then, he started walking towards my table. I was so nervous because that happened all of a sudden. I wasn't ready, and my body was shaking. I didn't even have my best outfit on. He came near me, hugged me tightly, and ordered my usual. He was smiling all the time. At first, we felt kind of shy, but then everything changed. We got the chance to talk about everything, and he said that the only reason why he didn't ask to meet was that he likes taking things slow. He lived not so far from my home, but I had never seen him before. We stayed and talked there for hours, and the only thing that stopped us was the waiter telling us that the coffee shop had to get closed. He walked me home that night and gave me his number. It was our time to leave the notes behind. Now it had been a year since we are together. I love how we met, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Even though we are young, we have already talked about our future. The coffee shop where we met was named Embel, which means sweet in Albanian. We talked and decided that if he had a daughter in the future, we would name her that way.
I am Riga, only 18 years old. I want to take you back in time and tell you what had happened to me when I was only 16 years old. But first, let me tell you about my life. I was born and lived all my life in a very tiny place in Kosovo, even though sometimes it gets lonely because almost everyone has left our village, going to the big cities. We are still grateful for the fresh air and beautiful views. I live with my mom, dad, and my two bigger brothers. I am the only daughter, and they have always treated me like a princess. However, my parents can be very strict, especially my dad. My dad can be a very old fashioned man. I try to advise him for good and tell him how much life has changed throughout the years. But it's like he's stuck in old times. It's like he doesn't want to listen and learn. But that doesn't stop me from living my life and doing whatever I want. Home is very far from school. It takes an hour. I have to get up extra early just so I can be ready in time. But the walk to the city is very long, and my hair gets curly and destroyed from the morning air. Even my makeup gets ruined. It's so annoying. But I enjoy school. I have some very good friends here that I know will last a lifetime. All of my friends are from the city, and at first it was hard for me to adapt. I felt like I didn't belong there, but they made me feel so welcomed. When I'm at school, I realize how my family and I live and how others live in the city. We all live in the same country, but still, it's a huge difference. People in the city are more open minded. I see my friends do a new tattoo every week. They have piercings all over their body and face. They change their boyfriends and girlfriends like they are changing their clothes. At first, even I found it strange, but now I'm used to it. This year, I got my first boyfriend, and with that happened the first kiss. But this only lasted for some months. Thank God my brothers didn't find out about this, because if they did, they would tell my dad, and he would think that I should be marrying the boy or something. But I don't want a relationship. I'm young. My brothers are married, and they often complain about it. They say that the ideal age to marry these days is 30 years old. All of my friends think this way too because nobody wants to get married early. This was my plan until one day. One day, I came back home from school. I was only 16 years old. I noticed there were a lot of shoes outside our door. We had some guests over. My plan was to go upstairs to my room because I was so tired from school. I always take a nap after school. I got in slowly so nobody would hear as I walked. But it was so quiet inside. My mom noticed me and she called me into the living room. She said that we had some guests that were here to see me. To see me? Who could it be? I went into the living room and I saw an old couple. There was a man too, maybe some years older than me. He was looking at me deep in the eye and he knew my name, but I didn't know who they were. They stayed less than an hour and they went. My dad asked me if I liked that man. I didn't know what he meant by that. He said that they came here to arrange a marriage with me. I couldn't believe my ears. I was only 16 years old. I was in the best times of my life. It's when I can enjoy life and do crazy things. How could I be married? But Dad said that that family liked me so much. He said they are a very good and very wealthy family. They could be paying for my college, and this way I could find a great job in the future. I kept saying no, but I didn't know that the marriage was already settled, and there was nothing that I could do but cry. I couldn't believe that Dad would do this to me. Even my brothers were mad at Dad, but Dad had a reason. He didn't tell us before, but it had been months since my dad had lost his job. He said that the only solution for us not to start the family was marrying that man. I said to Dad that I could work and keep the family. I would do any job. I wouldn't care. He said, okay, but if I don't find a job within 2 weeks, I would have to get married to that man. I accepted, thinking it would be easy to find a job, but I didn't know how hard it was. I knew that I wouldn't find anything to work in my village, and I searched in the city, even though it would be very far. I searched and searched, but nothing. I was losing hope, and it had already been a week. At this point, I was begging people to hire me, but they either said that I was too young or couldn't hire someone to work part time. I was at school and I couldn't work full time. I had no other choice but to tell my dad that I couldn't find a job. He seemed so happy. He was being so selfish. I asked him to give me more time, but he said no. Dad said that the man was waiting for me to get married, and that tomorrow I had to go by his house. He apparently lived in a way smaller village than we did. It was far from home. That night I could barely sleep, knowing that I would leave my home forever. I had to miss school, and I didn't tell my friends what was happening to me. It was so embarrassing. I thought about quitting school, just so they couldn't know what had happened. The next day came so fast, and Mom woke me up early to get ready. Mom didn't want me to get married. I could tell in her eyes. As she was getting me ready, her eyes were full of tears, and her voice was shaking. She said that it would be better if I don't wear as usual. I shouldn't be wearing tight, ripped jeans or crop tops. Mom found an old dress of her and made me wear it. We had to walk there. It was me, Dad, and Mom. It was a very hot day. Then we arrived. They lived in a huge house. It was surrounded by big trees and had a very big, beautiful garden. In front door, there was a fountain. The sound of the water was so calming. We got in and I was so shy. The man was there and not talking at all, but he couldn't keep his eyes off of me. His parents seemed like very respectful people. They didn't have any other child. We didn't stay there much, but they decided on a date for a wedding. Maybe this family wasn't so bad after all. A month went by, and I didn't get the chance to meet up with that man. I didn't know what he was like. Was he funny? Was he respectful? The wedding day had come, and I was about to find out all of my questions. The family had given us a lot of money, so I could be ready. Dad was happy. We needed the money. The wedding was held in their garden. It was a big wedding. There were a lot of people. I didn't know anyone there. But this was the first time that I got the chance to talk to my soon to be husband. I couldn't find out much about him. The wedding was over. I had to say, the wedding was over, and I had to say goodbye to Mom and Dad and my brothers. It was the saddest moment of my life. Then they showed us our room, where my husband and I would be sleeping. It seems so weird when I say husband. It was a big room, and it was all covered in roses. I could tell that we were both nervous and shy of knowing what would happen next. We should consume our marriage. I was scared because it was my first time. I had never done this before. He was shy too. He started getting me off my wedding dress. His hands were shaking. I was shaking too. He started to kiss me. What a weird feeling to kiss a stranger. What a weird feeling to get undressed in front of a stranger. But he was now my husband, and I had to get used to this. We were both in bed, and it was time for me to give him my virginity. Everything happened so fast. I had my eyes closed the whole time. Then he said, "Get up." He put the lights on and he was searching for something in the sheets. I asked him about what he was searching for. He said, "I can't find the blood of your virginity." So apparently I hadn't bled at all, which was normal. I told him that every girl's body is different and some of them bleed, some of them don't. He said, "Then how can I show to my parents the evidence that you were a virgin?" He said that they have a tradition to show the virginity blood to their parents. I was shocked and I didn't know what to say. I could tell that he was not trusting me, that I had never been with a boy before. I was only 16 years old. He got out of bed, saying he couldn't continue this marriage because I wasn't a virgin. I didn't bleed, and that morning he will tell everyone and call off the marriage. I felt so lost. I fell asleep crying and questioning the future of my life. What will my family think of me? What will happen to me? The following day came, and his family had already picked my stuff and told me to go. They were rude to me, and they were treating me like I wasn't worth it at all. My walk home was long, and I was trying to figure out how to tell my parents. They must know that virginity is just a myth, and some girls are born without it. I was so young, and I knew so much. Why didn't they know about this? In our villages, the girls who get divorced get judged and get called terrible names. I didn't care for myself. I was thinking about my family. I arrived home, and mom and dad was there. They were curious about why was I home. I had no other choice but to tell them the truth. Dad, without any hesitation, hit me and I fell to the ground. He wanted to beat me even more, but mom stopped him. He could have beaten me to death if mom didn't stop him. He told me that I was a disappointment for the family and that no one would ever accept to marry me again. That night I slept outside of our house. Thank God it was summer. Until my brothers came and talked to my dad. Dad agreed to take me to the house, but he never talked to me. He acts like I'm not there. I'm used to that. But at least I am free, and I'm not married to someone who doesn't know how the female body works. I wanted to share my story, even though it happened a long time ago. I wanted to share it because I've heard a lot of women in the same situation as me. I want the world to know that virginity doesn't define us because it doesn't even exist for some. It's sad to see how uneducated we are, yet we are the first ones to judge.
I am Lisi, and I am only 16-year-old. Months ago, something had happened to my family and me, so I decided to tell my story. Get ready to get goosebumps. I was born and raised in Thailand. We are one small family, but a happy one. I live with my parents, and I am the only child. My grandparents had passed away very early when I was a baby. But my mom says that I used to love them so much. I often think about them and how life would be if they were still alive. Even though I am big now, my mom still treats me like a baby. But I can't complain, though. I am a mama's boy. When I am home, most of the time I spend with my mother. My mom doesn't work, so she is always home. On the other hand, my father works in Switzerland and he is never home. But it doesn't go an hour that my mom and dad don't text each other. I try as much to stay home with her because I don't want her to feel alone. But it's hard, especially when you are a 16-year-old and your friends are going out and being rebellious. But my parents have sacrificed a lot for me. Staying home with my mother is the least that I can do. When my father isn't home, I feel like I become the father of the house. I think that I must be brave and I must do the most to make my mother feel safe. 5 years ago, we were in a very terrible economic situation. I was a kid, but I remember so much. I remember how stressed my parents were. My father worked different jobs, but he was not getting paid enough. My mother couldn't work because she had to stay home and look after me. We never had vacations, and we never went somewhere fancy. There were times when we could barely find food to eat. I was the only kid at school who would pack lunch and all the others were going out and eating. There were times that I felt left out. I like to remember the past because I see how much our lives have changed now. A lot has changed in 5 years. Since there weren't many good jobs, my father decided to leave our country and go to Switzerland. The fact that he would be far from us broke his heart. But it was the only solution. I remember how scared my mother was and how she would lock all the doors of our houses all the time. But our city, Jylland, is very safe. We were always safe here. My dad comes to visit us every 3 months. My mom is the happiest when dad is here. We are all happier now. Life is good. We have a roof upon our heads, good food, and warm clothes. These are the most important things, says my mom. But, on the other hand, my dad is different. He is always looking for more. He never settles down. Now that we are in an ideal economic situation, he thinks we should enjoy it and not feel guilty. I am not the type of person who wants expensive stuff, but my dad is. One day, as we talked on FaceTime, he said that he had a surprise for us. Guess what? He had bought a Tesla, a white brand new Tesla. This car was very trendy and everybody seemed to love it. I have heard about it and there were times when we would talk with my friends about it. I couldn't believe that my dad had bought it. It is a car that can drive itself. It's insane how far technology has gone. After some weeks, my dad had come and it was time for me to see the new Tesla. I was speechless. You should be 18-year-old to get your driver's license in my country. I don't have one yet. But my dad still let me drive it. It felt so good driving the Tesla. My heart was racing and my legs were shaking. We even tried the option to let the car drive itself. My mother was scared of it. But I loved it. Every time that my dad comes back, we go on vacation. This way we can spend more time together. Plus, it was summer and I was out of school. This time we decided to go to Elsinge, Montenegro. We had never been there, but people always seemed to love and have a good time there. We didn't care that we didn't know the road, Tesla got our back. It was a very hot day, so we couldn't wait and arrive there and have a cold swim. We didn't waste time. We took some clothes, some food for the road and decided to start the journey. It was a long road ahead of us. There were times when our dad would put the Tesla on its self-driving mode. His hands would be out of the wheel, but we would still feel safe. We started our journey very late afternoon and it was beginning to get dark outside. I slept some hours and when I woke up, it was pitch dark. My mom was asleep too. We were driving and driving. There were no lights, no cars, no humans. We could barely see. There were a lot of mountains and the road was getting bumpy. At first, we thought we were going on the wrong way, but the GPS told us that that was the right road for our wanted destination. We were looking for a gas station to stop and rest a little, but we couldn't see any. It was summer, but the road was foggy. That was where we started getting worried. At that moment, we were just hoping that the sun would rise, and this way, we would feel safer. We couldn't find any gas station, so we decided to stop the car and just have a little bit of fresh air. We parked the car on the side of the road. My parents were smoking a cigarette and we were just having a conversation. It was so dark. The moon was the only light. The silence was loud. Suddenly, a wild deer comes running so fast towards me. He pushed me to the ground. I was so scared because the deer was so big and it caught me off guard. We couldn't stay outside anymore because we thought they might be other wild animals, which could be dangerous. We got in the car and decided to continue our journey. After some hours, my dad noticed that there weren't any street signs anymore. It had been hours since we had seen a car or a human. We didn't have an internet connection. But, since we had never been there, we thought that this would be the right road. We decided to trust the car even though the road became harder and harder. We couldn't sleep anymore. We would just stare at the road and see where it would take us. My dad thought that it would be better if we would stop the car and ask for help. But the car wasn't stopping at all. We tried and tried, but the car just drove. We couldn't understand what was happening. We were so stressed. We were trapped inside of our car and we couldn't get out. The car took us inside some big mountains, then it stopped. It was even darker. There was nothing around us. We were left with so little food and we all needed to go to the bathroom, but the door was still locked. We fell asleep that way and then we woke up to the noise of the car starting up. My dad wasn't even touching the wheel anymore at this point. We were in the early minutes of sunrise and now we could see where we were. We were in a big field with nothing around us. The car started driving and driving. Then, it took us to a very strange place. There was a big, scary, abandoned building. The car got parked near there. Then, the doors of the car got opened. It was like the car was communicating with us, telling us to go outside of the car. At this point, we didn't care where we were. We just wanted to get out of the car and be safe. We got out, and I had never felt freer than at that moment. It was early morning. It was silent, and the only thing we could hear was the birds singing. We needed this fresh air. But there was nothing around us except that building. The car closed its doors, and now we were left outside. We didn't know if we would ever get back in our car or if we could ever return home. We thought it would be better if we walked around and asked for help. Maybe someone could be there. We walked around the building, but nothing was there. The building was old and musty. It had a massive door, and we couldn't see what was inside of it. We decided to open the door and find out. We walked in, and we noticed that it was someone's home. But maybe that someone had lived there over 50 years before. The furniture was untouched and full of dust. There was an old, fat television and an old piano. There were still some dirty dishes in the kitchen. The building had 3 floors. And we decided to go and see what was in there. There was a big room with over 20 beds. We thought that this might have been an orphanage. We wanted to see the 3rd floor too, but the stairs were so old and musty we were afraid that we would fall. We decided to go out and see if the doors of the cars got opened. We arrived at the living room and tried to open the door. We couldn't open the door. We were so scared and we didn't know what was going on. We felt like we were on the set of a horror film. As we were trying to figure out how to open the door, we heard the sound of the piano. It was playing itself. That was the moment we realized that this had to be with something abnormal, something out of this world. I don't believe in ghosts, either my parents, but what's the explanation for all the things happening to us? The piano play lasted for 3 good minutes. My body was shaking, not knowing what was going to happen next. Then the piano stopped and we just stayed here in complete silence. Suddenly, we heard some steps, like someone was coming to the living room. But no one was coming downstairs. We were stuck there for an hour, listening and looking around. Then we heard steps like some people were coming downstairs running to the living room. There were no people, no ghosts, just some dust flying around. That's when the door got opened and the dust went outside of the door. We were shocked because it looked like some spirit had just gone outside of the house. My mother was crying. We didn't know if we would be safer inside the house or outside. At that moment, we heard someone honking a car. And we thought that somebody had come to recuse us. But no. Our Tesla was honking at us like calling us to get in the car. We went outside and the car opened the doors. We got in and the car wasn't starting itself like it used to. My dad tried to start it and it did. It looked like we were in charge of the car now. We drove some miles and the GPA was back and we noticed that we were nowhere near our destination. We were back on the streets and we saw cars and people and millions of gas station stops. We didn't know if we should ask for help. What would we say to everyone? We decided to drive home because this whole road trip got too weird. I haven't told anyone this story until now. We still don't know if we will keep the Tesla. My dad's theory of all this happening was that somehow there were old spirits on that abandoned building that needed to be free. We were the chosen ones to do that. Why us, though?
I am Madison, but everyone calls me Maddie. You can call me Maddie too. I wanted to share a piece of my life with you. At 16-year-old, life can be so dull and exciting at the same time. The most exciting part of my life is that I live in London. I love everything about London. Everyone thinks that people from London drink only tea, but that's not true. I love coffee. I have always loved coffee. My mom thinks that coffee might be the reason why I can't fall asleep at night. But I can't help it. The coffee wakes my soul up. There is so much to see and do in London. You can never get bored of it. I don't know if you know, but London has the most extensive library in the whole world. I love reading. Maybe that's why I drink so much coffee. It helps me not fall asleep and read more and more. I am obsessed with reading. My favorite book of all time is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Once, I have read a whole book in just 2 days. But, what can I do? I don't enjoy going on my social media anymore. Everything is so fake, and I am tired of it. Why would I enjoy watching someone posting their food? Okay, you ate a margarita pizza, now what? And, no, Jessica, you don't look like that in real life. We can see your Photoshop fails. I think I am an old soul, just like my beloved grandfather, which he had passed 3 years ago. He is the reason why I am so into reading books. My mother always says that my grandfather used to read me every night before bed when I was a baby. I wish I could turn back and hear my grandfather read to me just one more time. The love of my grandparents has always been an inspiration to me. But, what can I say about my parents? My parents have been divorced for 5 years now. It was a peaceful breakup. I remember their divorce and how much I suffered from it. It was very depressive. Plus, I was an only child. That made this whole situation even worse. I just couldn't deal with the fact that my parents weren't together anymore. But I don't care now. They both have their own lives now. I live with my mother, even though I love Dad so much. He is the most kind and has the most generous soul. But, sometimes life doesn't work how you want. I remember at first I felt so guilty that I chose to live with my mother. I used to cry for my dad and how lonely he was. But now he was a girlfriend, and his girlfriend is pregnant. I am happy for him. I really am. I go to my dad's place every week. I love his girlfriend, and she is very kind to me. She says that I will be the one who is going to name their baby. Even my mother is happy for Dad, even though sometimes I think she gets a little jealous because his girlfriend is so much younger than Mom. However, recently something had caught my attention. My mother had been happier than ever. She had been going out a lot. She had been shopping and wearing new clothes. You should have smelled her perfume, and it's very sexual. I think she might be seeing someone. But I don't want to be the one asking her. I want her to be the only one telling me the news if there is any. I remember one day, I didn't go to school because I was sick. My mother didn't know because she was working during that time. The bell rang, and I decided to see who it was. There was no one. But there was a big bouquet with red flowers and a note. Well, this clearly wasn't for me. I am single, unfortunately. I put the flowers in. I didn't want to read the note first, but the curiosity was killing me. The note said, "See you tonight, get ready by 8. So, yes, my mother was for real seeing someone. I put her flowers in her bed and decided to play it off like I didn't see anything. She came home and saw the flowers. She seemed very shy and embarrassed. But I wanted to make her feel good. I said to her that that was okay and that I wanted her to find her true love. Love has no age and no time. Then, she told me about everything. There was a man called Mitchell, and they had been dating for 1 year. Apparently, Mitchell's wife had died for 3 years now from cancer. They have one child, a son. It must be sad to lose your mother and know that you might not see it ever again. For a minute, I was glad my parents were divorced. At least, I could see and be with them. My mother got ready that night and went out. I was happy for her. She deserves someone to bring her flowers and love her in the best possible way. After some months, my mother told me some very good news. My mother and Mitchell had decided that it was time for us to meet as a whole family. I was excited. We got ready and decided to meet at a restaurant. And there it was, Mitchell and his son. Why didn't my mother tell me that Mitchell's son is the same age as me? I thought he was going to be younger or something. We sat and then started talking about random stuff. Mitchell was so kind and funny. I could tell that he was a good man. But on the other hand, Mitchell's son was so mysterious. Apparently, his name is Duor. He was 2 years older than me. He didn't talk much. He just kept staring. But generally, this date went very well. Days went by, and nothing exciting was happening. The school was almost over for this season. Summer was there. I was excited about summer. Life becomes better. Every summer, my mother and I always have some type of vacation. We go somewhere far, somewhere beaky, and spend some days there. My mother works, so she needs some time off. That's what we did that summer too. But that time, something was different. It wasn't just my mother and me anymore. My mother thought that it would be good if we called Mitchell and his son. I agreed, why not? So that's what we did. We got in the car. A long road was ahead of us. Duor and I were sitting in the back seat, and this way, we had more chances to get to know each other better. Just like Mitchell, Duor was funny too. But I'd always catch him staring at me in a way that I can't describe. He had a perfect style and had a lot of cool rings on his fingers. I couldn't help but look at them. He had beautiful hands. After some hours of driving, I had nothing to do. It was getting boring. I decided to read my books. I got so lost in my book and in what was happening there. Then all of a sudden, I felt that something had touched my shoulder. It was Duor. He had fallen asleep on my shoulder. I didn't want to wake and ruin his sleep. I felt bad. Plus, he smelled so good. The road trip was long, but we finally had made it to our destination, the beach. I spent the whole day napping, but it was beach day all day the next day. I put on my bikini, got myself an iced coffee, and got myself a good book. That's how I spend my beaky days. I love to tan while I am reading. But Duor had something else on his mind. He thought that it would be a great idea if we all took a boat. But my mother hates boats. She gets seasick. Then, he pushed on taking me with him. It was just Duor and me. As we were getting on the boat, I wanted to take my book with me. He said, "Come on, be fun for once." For once. How can he know how fun I am? The first minutes of the boat ride, I was moody about what he had said. But he kept talking and making funny jokes that were hard to stay mad at. Suddenly, he asked me to put sunscreen lotion on his back. Then, he put sunscreen on me, without me asking. I was shy and didn't know what to say. We got back, and I got back to my reading. The next day came. It was my mother's and Mitchell's second anniversary of their relationship. They decided that it would be great if we all went to a fancy dinner. But Duor said that they should go without us. Maybe he was right. They needed some alone time. That's what they did. I decided to stay in for the night. Suddenly, I get a text from Duor, saying that I should meet him in his hotel room. It was across my room. I decided to go since I had nothing to do. He said that we should go to a club near our hotel. We got dressed and decided to go. Even though we were not 21-year-old, they let us in. The vibes were so good, and we danced a lot. We had some drinks. A lot, I must say. We were dancing, and he would grab me by my waist. I was saying to myself, is it the alcohol, or do I really like this guy? Everything happened so fast. We kissed. I didn't mean to kiss him. He was the first to take me to move. I could have stopped him, but I didn't. What was happening with me? We both looked at each other surprisingly. We didn't say a word about what happened. We got to our hotel and went into our separate rooms. The next day had come, and we pretended as nothing had happened. I know that the kiss was a bad thing to do. He is my stepbrother. But, last night I couldn't sleep without thinking of it. He is exactly my type. I'd date him if he weren't my stepbrother. Plus, he was older than me. I liked that fact. I decided to play it off like I don't remember what had happened yesterday. I was going by the beach, and there he was. He was waiting for me. We met and acted like we didn't kiss. We decided to take another boat ride together, hoping that we would discuss what happened yesterday. As long as we left the shore and that nothing could be seen, he came at me. And he kissed me. I still didn't hesitate and didn't say no. I felt guilty, and I didn't want this to happen. I felt like we were betraying our parents. I told him those exact words. He agreed, but he said that he was starting to have a feeling for me. I was starting to feel in a certain way too, but I didn't say anything. There was no need for us to say anything because this thing shouldn't have happened at all. We decided that the moment we were going to be on the shore from the boat ride, we would forget that we ever kissed. And that's what we did. We decided that this would be our little secret. The road trip home wasn't awkward at all. I felt happy that we still could talk and joke around, even after what had happened. For a second, I thought that I could be in love with my stepbrother. But that would be so selfish of me. We kissed because we felt vulnerable during that time. There was nothing else there. Maybe it could be. Who knows? But it is not our time to love. Our parents deserve love more than we do. We are still young, and we know that other souls out there are waiting to fall in love with us. I am just happy to share this here since no one knows about this.
Hi there, my name is Melissa, and I am only 17-year-old. Before I begin with my story, I want to give you a glimpse of my life. I come from the beautiful city of Jylland. I was born and raised here. Our house is upon a hill, and you can see the whole city from it. The views are crazy, and the sunsets are breathtaking. The sunrises are beautiful too, but I am not an early bird. I love to sleep a lot, especially in the mornings. I barely go in time for school. So yeah, I don't get to see a lot of sunrises. I live with my dad, mom, and my little brother. But, we recently welcomed a new family member. It's my favorite member, actually, our little puppy. It was my birthday gift from Dad. I've always wanted a dog. I like to believe that our dog is happy here. When I am at home, I feel like a baby, my mom and dad kissing my forehead everywhere I go. Asking me what I want to eat, telling me to go to sleep. They still treat me like I am a child. My parents don't get it that I am a grown-up. When I go to my school, it is a whole different story. I am a teenager. I act how a 17-year-old should act. I am not the sweet daddy's little girl. I have just started my second year of high school, and my parents have no idea what goes on there. They don't know that there is not a single soul there that hasn't dated someone at least once, including their daughter. Me. Just like everyone else, I've liked someone too. But, this was years ago and I was very young. I gave my first kiss, not knowing what a kiss was. Since then, I haven't dated anyone. It's not that I am not wanted, but no one has caught my eye. Well, that's what I thought until one day. One morning, I heard my alarm ringing, and I looked at the clock. I decided to give myself some extra minutes and enjoy the sleep on my warm bed. I had stayed all night the other night, well, how couldn't I? The new episodes of my favorite show had been aired. Suddenly, I felt someone touching my shoulder and calling my name gently, and it was Dad. "Aren't you going to school?" he said. Well, yeah, Dad, I am, obviously. It was Monday, and I had to go to school. Why are Mondays always so hard? I hate it. I got up and tried to get ready, but I was already late. This wasn't the first time that I missed my early classes. My parents understand me when I can't wake up early, they don't say anything to me. But, this will for sure affect my grades. I wore anything that I could find. Clothes that were lying on the ground of my room, from the days before. Thinking about how I have to clean my room after school today. My mom will kill me if she sees how messed up my room was, but she is most of the time at work. Crossing my fingers that she would not go into my room today. At least I opened the window, so some fresh air would go in. Because I had eaten in my room the night before, it smelled terrible. I got out, and my parents had already left for work. I had to walk to school. It was windy and cold. Just what I needed. It was already a bad day, and I wouldn't be surprised if a group of stray dogs would follow me and try to eat me. This is a very serious problem in our city, there are a lot of stray dogs. I love dogs, but sometimes they can be dangerous. I arrived at my school and noticed that the door was closed. There were a lot of people there. I tried to open the door, and someone said, "They are not letting us in because we are late." I turned my back to see who was talking. And oh my God, he was the most handsome boy I've ever seen in my life. I didn't know who he was. He might be in his last year of high school. We stayed there, waiting, and he would look at me non-stop. But, this wasn't my best day. I wasn't looking the best. It was so cold, and I could feel my nose had turned red. Have I even brushed my hair? I am the most unlucky person alive. I was surprised at how he was looking at me. I was a mess. But then, he started walking towards me. He looked like he wanted to say something to me. But, the bell had rung at that moment, and the door was opened. I was curious about what he was going to say to me, but the curiosity didn't last very long. When I came home, I had a new follow request. It was him. How did he find me? Why did he follow me? I wanted to know, so I requested him back. He accepted it within seconds. I am not even kidding, I spent a whole good hour stalking at his profile, and he apparently posts a lot. I learned a lot about him. He goes to the gym every morning before school. You should have seen his pictures, his body. He had posted with his family, and he had a dog. But I couldn't help but notice all the girls commenting on his pictures. Then, I stalked at those girls' profiles too. They were from different cities, and they were so hot and beautiful, it made me jealous. I was jealous because I looked nothing like them. So, I deleted all of my posts. I was embarrassed. In that minute, the boy texted me. I felt sick from all of the butterflies flying in my stomach. I decided to go into my room and text in peace. I decided to not open his messages right away, I didn't want to look like I was interested. But I couldn't resist any longer. He had said, "Why did you delete your posts?" I was going to look at them. In my mind, I was saying, "It's fine, you can look at the photos of the hundreds of other girls that you follow." But I played cool, and that night we stayed until the morning texting non-stop. He was exactly my type, funny, sweet, and sarcastic. But, he had made my life complicated. Now I couldn't wake up late for school and go looking like a complete mess. I needed to look good. I started not staying up late at night, this way, I became an early bird. My mom and dad were curious about how I changed. But, I need to, because I see him every day at school. We saw each other, but we hadn't had the chance to talk to each other yet. I was stupid to think that a guy like him would be interested in me. Every girl drools after him. But, one day, as we were texting, he said that he wanted to go out on a date with me. I couldn't believe my eyes. But I didn't care, I said yes immediately. We have been texting for months now. It was time for us to meet. But, what was I going to wear? Will he like me? 100 questions were running through my mind. He was a year older than me, so he had a driver's license. He said that he would come by my house and pick me up. I was so stressed knowing that my mom and dad would see me. I spent hours trying to find the perfect outfit. My room once again had become a big mess. That moment Mom came in to call me to eat dinner and saw the mess. She said I couldn't go out unless I cleaned all of that. I was sweating, and I didn't have much time left. I didn't even fold my clothes, I just left them on my bed. I ran out of my house because he was already waiting outside. He was waiting for some streets away from my home, and the walk to his car was so awkward. I could see him looking at me while I was walking. I got in his car, and his perfume was everywhere, and it smelled so good. I have a weird obsession with men's perfume, and I always use my dad's. Anyways, he hugged me, and we decided to just have a ride around the city and listen to some music. I couldn't stop looking at his hands while he was driving. He was wearing a ring on his index finger. I could tell what we were vibing, and we were enjoying each other's company. He was laughing at everything I was saying. We bought some food, and we ate it in the car. We didn't realize that it had been hours since I had been out until my dad called me asking where I was. This was the end of our date. The only way to find out if the person you went on a date with likes you is if he texts you immediately that night. And that's what he did. He texted me, and the texting continued for days. I know that we weren't dating yet, but we were texting, telling him personal things I never discussed with anyone else. And there was something that I didn't like. He would always follow girls on his Instagram and like their posts, and there were times he would even comment. I didn't know how to feel. I wasn't doing what he was doing. I wasn't accepting it, but he called me on another date. But he called me on a very, very bad day. My period had just come, and my stomach was hurting so bad. My face was full of pimples. There was a big, disgusting pimple right around my lips. I didn't want him to see me that way, so I said I couldn't go out. I didn't tell him why not, obviously. But I tried to hide in school too, just so he didn't see me. I couldn't go out with him until this pimple would be gone. Seeing what kind of girls he follows, my confidence was so low. My period pimples only last some weeks, so that's alright. Just when I thought that nothing could go any wrong, I accidentally fell asleep while chewing gum one night. I didn't notice it until I woke up for school and tried to brush my hair. I tried to brush my hair, but I couldn't. Then, I saw it. The gum was on my hair. I screamed so bad, Mom came to check if I was alright. I wasn't alright. Mom said I should chop my hair. I couldn't go to school that day, and I had to go to a hairstyle and take care of it. The hairdresser laughed when she saw me, but she said some bad news. She said that the only solution for my hair was to get bangs. Bangs? But that was so 2000s, and nobody has bangs anymore. I was going crazy, but I had no other choice. I cut it, and I was looking so ugly. I cried till we arrived home, and I didn't have time to check on my phone, and I was in a crisis. But, a number called me. It was the boy that I was texting with. He said that he wanted to see me tonight since I missed school. He said that he missed me. But I couldn't go out like this. I was looking crazy. My plan was to not see him for some months, so my hair would grow a little. Weeks went by, and he called me once again. I wanted to see him because I missed him so much. But, Dad said that we will give him some money and buy some clothes when he gets paid. I needed new clothes, so I thought it would be better if I waited for more weeks. I wanted to look good. But, I noticed that he wasn't texting me as he usually did. He was cold. However, I decided to put my guard down for once in my lifetime and be the one to ask him on a date. Guess what? You will never guess this, so I will tell you myself. He said that he couldn't go out because he had got a new girlfriend. Maybe that's what I get for caring too much about how I looked.
My name is Hira, and I just wanted to share some pieces of my life. Because, why not? I have just turned 18-year-old. Everyone says that the teenage years are the best years of your life. It's the time when you grow while making mistakes, and I believe that. I come from the capital city of Kosovo, Pristina. My city has changed a lot in recent years. People are getting more open-minded, and I like that. People are dating whoever they want, doing whatever they want. My mother always says that women suffered a lot back in the old days and never raised their voices. But, now, it's different. Women don't tolerate anymore, and that's how it should be. Pristina is a great city to grow in. I wouldn't change my hometown for anything in the world. There is so much to do and see. So many little coffee shops where you can enjoy the day. The nightlife is crazy too. My house is in the center of the city. You can see the whole city from it. The views are breathtaking, especially during sunsets. We have this little balcony where I spent almost all my time there. I live with my parents, sister, and our chubby golden retriever puppy, Buna. My parents both work as teachers. They have the same personality, and sometimes we think that they are one person. I have never seen a love like theirs. My dad always wanted to have a son. But I am glad that we don't have a brother. All of my friends that have brothers complain. They say that they get very overprotective even when they shouldn't be. They can be jealous over what to wear and where to go to. I would hate it if someone controlled me and told me what to wear. I was raised not to be controlled by anyone. I love my freedom, and my parents have always respected it. This year is my last year of high school. I will graduate soon. My experience in high school has been very easy for me. I am saying this because I feel like it is not the same for everybody. There are times when I witness people getting bullied over simple things, and I always try to stand up for them. But, I think that our school and our teachers are the ones to blame. They don't care about what happens. They just take their money and go, no matter how destroyed your mental health is. Like everyone else, I have been in a bad mental health state too. I have just ended a 2-year relationship. 2 years ago, I was a completely different person. I fell in love. I fell in love with a boy called Roan. He loved me too. We were so young and dumb, but somehow we managed to fall in love and make it last for whole 2 years. Those 2 years had their ups and downs. He was my first everything. My first relationship. My first breakup. We would see each other every day. My family knew about him, and his family knew about me. His mother loved me, and she still texts me to this day. What did go wrong? What could it happen? As time passed by, Roan was changing a lot. He would ask me to go out with him every day. You must think that that's alright, right? Yes. But, we saw each other all the time, so I couldn't have time to see my family or even my friends. At first, I liked the fact that we would meet up every day, but then I realized that he wanted to have me all to himself. He wanted my life to be all about him. He would start telling me what to wear and where to go. There were times when I would go out with my sister, and I would see him in the same place where I was going. He was following me and not letting me go alone anywhere. At this point, I thought that he didn't even trust me. If you don't trust someone in a relationship, then that means that there is no love, right? I was too young to give everything to him, to change for him. I remember once I broke up with him because I had had enough. He kept saying that he would change, but he never did. I realized that he doesn't look at me as his girlfriend anymore. He looked at me as someone I must obey, like a slave. There wasn't love anymore, so I left. I remember how angry he was when I told him that I wanted to leave him. But I didn't care. I wanted my freedom. It has been months, and I am loving my life. I feel like no one is watching every step of what I do anymore. I feel free. Plus, something new has happened in my life. Let me start from the beginning. One day I was walking my dog at the park in our city. It was a beautiful day, very sunny. It was just me, and I had my headphones on. My dog, Buna, is usually timid. She is shy and always listens to what I say. She is a good girl, until that day. As I was walking her, she ran away so fast, and I almost fell to the ground. I started chasing her. Then I saw her next to another dog, another golden retriever, a male. They were kissing and playing around. It looked like they were falling in love. Then, all of a sudden, someone says, "Is that your dog?" I looked up and saw a tall, blonde guy with ocean eyes. I said yes, and he told me that the other dog that Buna was playing with was his. We were trying to get them separated, but we couldn't. They kept running away together. I felt happy and sad at the same time. I was sad because I was so caught up in my life that I forgot that even animals feel lonely. Even animals need love and someone to fall asleep with. We decided not to separate them and let them play a little bit. He went and bought me a coffee, and we sat in the park, watching our dogs play. His name was Trim, which in English it means brave. What a beautiful name. Trim was a little bit shy, but I could tell that he was very respectful. He was 2 years older than me. He lived in the same neighborhood as me, but I had never seen him before. We stayed there for an hour, and we talked like we had known each other for years. He said that he walks his dog every day, so we decided to meet the next day and walk them together. As I walked home, I didn't have an internet connection, but I noticed someone had texted me when I went in. It was my ex, Roan. He had written a long text saying that he saw me with another guy, and he wanted to know who he was. How did he see me? Was he following me still? I didn't want to text him at all, but he kept calling me and saying that we should meet. I didn't want to meet with him because I no longer owe him any explanations. I ate dinner and decided to watch a movie. It was just my sister and me at home. My parents weren't there. Suddenly, someone starts knocking on the door and calling my name. It was Roan. I opened the door. He went in without us saying and went straight to my room. He looked like he was crying, but he acted like a psychopath, saying that I shouldn't be moving on so fast. He kept saying that we weren't done yet. I told him that that was the first time that I saw that guy and that we were not dating. He refused to trust me and kept yelling. I got afraid and told him that if he didn't get out of my house, I would call the police. He had no other choice but to leave. I fell asleep that night, getting worried about what would happen next. The next day, I decided to meet with Trimi to walk our dogs, as we said the other day. At first, I thought that it would be better if I didn't meet up with him, but why would I? We met up at the same place where we first saw each other. The dogs were so happy to see each other. I was happy to see Trimi too. We are so much alike. We talked, and it was a well-spent day. I couldn't help but think if my ex was there somewhere watching. There were a lot of people, and I couldn't tell if he was there. I was afraid I would run up to him, and he would say something to Trimi. Days had gone by, and there were no calls, no nothing from my ex. But I could see that he was still stalking me on my social media. I didn't care as long as I was not seeing him. But, on the other hand, Trimi and I were texting non-stop. I know that it hadn't been long since I broke up with my ex, but the way he treated me got me thinking that I might actually like him. One day, after we were done walking our dogs, Trimi called me to go to his place. He lived near the park and said that he would make me a Turkish coffee. He said that everyone was crazy about his coffee. I was curious, so I went, even though I am not a big fan of coffee. We went there and stayed on his balcony. His sisters and his mother were there. We all had a great time. They all loved Bunith too. After some hours of staying at Trimi's, I decided to go home. He walked me out of his house and said that we should have a date tomorrow, but without our dogs. Our dogs were the reason why we were going out in the first place. Was that an excuse? Does he like me more than friends? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out, so I said yes. Tomorrow had come, and I was getting ready for the date. Buna was barking all the time, begging to take her with me. But that day, I couldn't. It was time that Trimi and I got to know each other even better. I got ready even though we hadn't been texting that day at all. But we had already chosen the place and the time. We decided on going to a restaurant near us. We would meet there. I went some minutes late, just so I couldn't be the first one to arrive there. I would sound so depressive. But when I got there, he still wasn't there. I didn't want to order without him, so I just waited, staying on my phone awkwardly. I didn't want to text him immediately. I waited for an hour, thinking that maybe something had happened. Nobody had ever stood me up on a date. I was feeling so embarrassed. I tried to call him, but he wouldn't answer. Then he texted me that he couldn't come. I went home feeling confused. He didn't even tell me the reason why he couldn't come. The next day, I thought about walking my dog simultaneously as I usually do. I was hoping to see Trimi and find out what had happened last night. But he wasn't at the park. He never misses a day without walking his dog. I thought that something bad had happened, and I couldn't stay without figuring it out. I decided to go to his house. His mother opened the door, and she seemed happy to see me. She insisted on going in and having a coffee, but I said no. Then, Trimi came outside of the house, not looking in a good mood. We decided to sit on the balcony. He wasn't talking at all. Then, I asked him about what had happened. He responded angrily, "You should go. It would be bad if your boyfriend saw that you are here." "What boyfriend?" I asked, confused. Then it hit me. It was Roan, the crazy ex who apparently wouldn't leave me alone. I told him that I didn't have a boyfriend and that I would tell him if I had. He said that after I went home that day, Roan had come to his place and talked to him. He had said that he had told him that we were together. I couldn't believe my ears. Why would Roan do that? I explained to Trimi everything, and he believed me. I didn't know what to do with Roan. Should I talk to his parents? Should I call the police? I mean, he was stalking me and not leaving me alone. However, I thought that it would be better if I talked to him. I texted him and said that we should meet. I told him that we should meet somewhere in public, just in case he does something stupid. So, we did meet. He had bought me some flowers, and he seemed sad. I asked him why he said that to Trimi. His eyes were full of tears. He goes, "The idea of seeing you with someone else kills me." He said that he regrets everything he did to me and still loves me. But, if you love someone, you don't try to change them. The way they wear and the places they go. I explained to him that what he is feeling is not love. I think he understood that, and we agreed on staying friends. Will he stop leaving me alone? I don't know. Will Trimi and I get together? I don't know that either. All I know is that you should never try to change someone because that person will not change.
I am Flutura, and just like everyone else, I have imperfections too. Yesterday I turned 16-year-old, and someone special had gifted me this diary. So I decided to write. People say that the best years of your life are the teenage years. But, what they don't know is that life can be both beautiful and challenging at the same time. It's so hard to live your life when you aren't satisfied with yourself or when you don't feel comfortable in your skin. I've had a hard time with myself since I can even remember. My parents had named me Flutura for a reason. Flutura, in my language, means butterfly. The plan was not on naming me Flutura, but something had happened. I was born. My parents were so happy when I was born. I was the first child. I was healthy and chubby, just like every other perfect baby, except for one thing. I was born with a scar on my face, on the left side. When I was born, my parents were surprised and noticed that the scar looked just like a butterfly. And that's why they decided on naming me Flutura. My scar has always been my biggest insecurity. I remember how I always asked questions about how I was the only one with that scar. Even my parents hated this fact because there weren't many pictures of me when I was a baby. They don't show it, but that's what I think. After some years, something good had happened in our family. We had welcomed another baby, a baby girl. I was so young, but I remember I was so excited to have a baby sister. My parents were excited too. My baby sister turned out to be so perfect. No scars, no nothing. I remember I was so jealous. But I still am. The jealousy never faded away to this day. But still, our childhood was perfect. We lived in Pristina all of our lives. It was just me, my parents, and my little sister. However, I didn't know that my childhood would be the easy part of my life. I grew up, and the insecurity grew up with me. My friends would ask me about my scar. What had happened? What is that? Can you remove it? Why is it black? The question always made me feel bad about myself. It made me feel like I didn't belong there and that I was different. So, I tried to hide it. I never tied my hair up. When I was younger, I did a hairstyle to hide my scar, and it was embarrassing. I put all of my hair on my left side. My parents used to talk to me and make me feel better, but that wasn't enough. All of my friends are active on social media. They post pics of their face, their body, and outfits. But I just can't do that. All of my photos are only on my right side. My social media had become boring, so I had to close them. I started high school, and life has become even harder. I started doing makeup to hide my scar. I woke up extra early because my makeup took me 1 hour. But it's worth it. I feel normal, just like everyone else. All of my friends have had their first kiss, and they don't believe me when I say that I still didn't yet. I am not confident enough to let someone touch my face, put their hands on my hair, and kiss me. I am not confident because I have constantly been bullied and left behind. People would stare at me in public like I am an alien. Sometimes I just want to yell at them and say, "What are you looking at?" But, life is easier for me during winter. I love winter. I love wearing a hat and a scarf, and this way, my scar is not even noticeable. But, one day, something had happened. It was a snowy day, and I could barely see. I was walking home from school, and I was alone. The road was icy, and I didn't know. I fell on the ground so bad that I apparently fainted. I didn't even know what had happened that day until I woke up at the hospital. I didn't have my scarf on me, and my hair was up. There was a boy there. I didn't know who he was. I had never seen him before. He looked like he was the same age as me. Apparently, he was the one that saw me falling, and he helped me. The doctor had called my parents and said that they would be there in a minute. But I didn't care about that. I was just searching for my scarf so nobody would have seen my scar. But that was too late. He had seen my scar, but it didn't seem like he cared. He still was looking at me like I was a normal person. I thanked him for saving me, and then he left without even telling me his name. My parents came to get me, so we went home. The very next day, in the same place as I had fallen, the guy that helped me was there. I thought that maybe that's where he lived. I acted as if I was not seeing him, but he was looking at me. I was so glad that I had my scarf on and that he would not see my scar. He started walking towards me and said, "Hi, do you remember me?" I said yes. He said that he wanted to make sure that I wouldn't fall again. But that was just his excuse to see me again. But why would he want to see me again? He said that he wanted to meet up with me so we could get to know each other. We decided on a date for the next day. I was so excited and scared at the same time. I could barely sleep that night. The day of the date came so fast. I tried to look my best. I put on as much makeup as I could so my scar wouldn't be noticeable. And I would look beautiful. We met up, even though we still didn't know each other's names. His name is Leon. The first thing he said to me was, "Why did you put on so much makeup?" He said that he liked me more without makeup. And nobody has said this to me before. It felt good. I felt beautiful around him. But Leon doesn't live around here. He has been at his uncle's for some months. The date went very well, and I learned a lot about him. I got his number, and he had been texting me non-stop. At first, I didn't want to tell my sisters or my friends about this date. God knows what can happen next. I don't want to jinx it. But, after some days of our date, as I was walking out of school, Leon was waiting for me. He didn't tell me that he was going to come. He wanted it to be a surprise. It was a surprise indeed, a good one. But I felt terrible since my friends didn't know a thing. They were so confused. But I told them that I'd explain to them everything and went on the next date with Leon. We went to this sushi place. I had never tried sushi before, but I liked it. When I am around him, I forget that I have a scar. He didn't even ask about it like it didn't exist. I wanted to be the first one to talk about it and just get over it, but I couldn't. I have never had a boyfriend before. The scar was always getting in my way. It's not that boys didn't love me because of my scar. It is just that I am never confident enough to let anyone love me. The next day, I decided to tell my friends about Leon. They had already seen him the other day. I owe them an explanation, even though we are not dating or anything. We meet up, and I hug them and start talking like usual. But I immediately felt like a cold vibe, like something wasn't all right. I asked them, "What's wrong?" They were so rude to me all of a sudden, saying, "You weren't going to tell us that you have a boyfriend." But I told them that Leon is not my boyfriend, he is just a friend. They didn't believe me. They were saying that I was not good enough for Leon and that he would leave me and be all alone. "Did he even see your scar?" they said. "How could he love you like that?" I couldn't even say anything. My heart was broken into pieces. I went home that day, and I couldn't figure out why my two best friends were acting that way. Was it jealousy? Because they are dying to have a boyfriend right now. Plus, Leon is so handsome, tall, and funny. He is just perfect. I always was the one that heard their endless stories about their first kisses, their first dates, and so on. I never got to say those things. And I was never jealous. I was happy for them. But was it true? All of the words they were saying. Maybe it's the truth that Leon would never want to date me. Maybe he just wanted a friend since he doesn't have who to stay with at this uncle's house. There were a lot of thoughts running through my mind. I couldn't help but cry all night. I felt so low and ugly. How can your own best friend make you feel so ugly? I was stupid to think that Leon would be into me. Leon was texting me non-stop that night, but I decided to not reply. I didn't want to talk to him anymore, and maybe it was for the best. I didn't want my heart to be broken. It had been 2 days since I hadn't gone to school, and I didn't reply to any of Leon's messages. I didn't want to see anyone, and my parents understood me even though I didn't tell them any reasons. But I couldn't miss school all my life. I didn't want to walk to school because I was afraid that I would run onto Leon. So my mother drove me to school. When I arrived at school, Leon was there. He came there only to tell me so we could meet after school since I wasn't replying to his messages. So that's what we did. We had a date after school. But for then, I had to go to my classes. There were my best friends there. I didn't want to talk to them, but they insisted. They told me how bad they felt and that they didn't mean any of the words that they said. But I couldn't forgive them. They attacked me in my biggest insecurity. I told them that I needed time to decide if I wanted to talk to them or not. The school was over for that day, and it was time for me and Leon to meet. When we met, he hugged me so tight and so long. I was surprised. He told me how much he missed me and how he wondered why I wasn't replying to him back. My voice was shaking, but I told him exactly what had happened. I could tell that he felt sorry for me, but I didn't want that. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. He put my hair away and looked at me. He came closer to me and kissed my scar. And then he kissed my lips. He asked me to be his girlfriend, and I had never felt so beautiful. During this time with Leon, I had realized that imperfections are beautiful and that the right people can make you feel so loved. That's what Leon did. He made me feel beautiful as I should. He gave me this diary so I could write about the things that make me sad, and he said that after I write them down, they won't feel as important as I would think. This helped me a lot. I have been talking with my best friends too because now no one can make me feel not beautiful. I feel beautiful, and that's what matters. My name is Trisa, and I have just turned 18-year-old. I decided to tell a story, but it is not just any story. It is my story and what had happened to my family and me. I was born and raised in Skopje. I live with my two beautiful parents and my little brother Troji. Troji is only 1 year younger than me, but he still acts like a bit of a child and annoys me. I've always wanted a sister, and my parents tried for another baby, but I guess it is meant to be just Troji and me. But I don't complain because my mother is like a sister to me. Troji and I had an amazing childhood. It was so good growing up with our grandparents. They both had passed away this year from COVID. It doesn't go a day that I don't think about them. I miss them so much. But our lives have always been good. My parents worked so hard for the life that we have now. My father is an anesthesiologist, and he makes pretty good money from it. I heard that it is the highest paying job in the world. My mother, on the other hand, is a teacher. Everyone loves her. Well, who couldn't love her? She is the kindest and most loving. Even though my parents have completely different lives, they still manage to understand each other and love each other since day one. I have just graduated from high school, and I am very excited about what will happen next in my life. High school wasn't the best experience, and I am so glad that it is over. Life has become exactly like in the movies. I could hardly find a good friendship at my high school since everyone is so mean nowadays. But now, we had just welcomed my favorite season ever, summer. And life is just good. I love summer. The days get longer and warmer, and life generally becomes better. Since my parents work all the time, and my brother and I are at school, the only chance to go somewhere as a family is during summer. We always go with our cousins. It's always fun because they have 3 daughters. During vacations, you need to have someone that you have fun with. I can't have fun with my brother. He wants different things. He is a boy. But this summer our cousins couldn't come with us. I was so sad and angry when I heard about this. At first, I didn't want to go at all, but it was summer, and I had to make the most of it. So we decided to have a vacation. We decided on going to Italy, Amalfi Coast. Italy has always been a dream of all of us. We decided that we would go by car. And that's what we did. There was a long road ahead of us. Troji and I were sitting in the back seat of the car. I got my snacks and my headphones. My obsession right now is a rock band called Arctic Monkeys. Troji would always take my headphones and make my music stop, and this way, we would fight a bit. It was a long road trip with fights and laughs. We would make stops here and there until we arrived at our destination. And here it was, the famous Amalfi Coast. It looked better than the pictures. We decided to stay at a hotel that was near the beach and away from the city. There were a lot of tourists, and we needed some peaceful time. The hotel was very luxurious, and we all had a room to ourselves. But we shared a living room, and it was more like an apartment rather than a hotel. The view from my balcony was crazy. You could see the whole ocean. You could scream all you want, but no one would hear you. But that day we were so tired, we decided to sleep so we could be more energetic and enjoy the day the next day. The next day arrived, and we were so excited. I put on my favorite bikini and was ready to take a tan. We decided to stay by the beach. I love napping on the beach, it's just so peaceful. We didn't do much during the daytime. In the evening we decided to go and have some dinner. We wanted to go to places that weren't so near to our hotel, so we had to go by car. But it was only an 8-minute car ride or something. We arrived, and there were a lot of tourists. You could literally be lost in there. I was holding my mother's hand like I was only a 10-year-old. We ate dinner that night and then went back to our hotel and fell asleep. I wish we didn't get back to our hotel. I wish we didn't sleep. We did our thing, not knowing that something terrible was going to happen the next day. My alarm clock woke me up in the morning because we always wake up early during vacation. It was almost 7 a.m. I decided to sleep a little bit more, knowing well that my mother would wake me up. I slept and realized that nobody had come to my room to wake me up. I looked at the clock, and it was 8 a.m. There were no missed calls and no messages. I took my phone, just like I always do in the mornings. And I started scrolling. I noticed that the Wi-Fi wasn't working. I was surprised how this luxurious apartment had problems with Wi-Fi. I decided to go to the other rooms and wake my parents and my brother. Maybe they had missed the alarm, I thought. But I couldn't open the door. The door is locked. Some minutes went by, and I didn't panic at all until I heard someone begging the door. It was Mom, Dad, and my brother. Their rooms had been locked too. We could barely hear each other, but we were trying so hard to communicate. Their Wi-Fi and their phone weren't working. There was no signal. It had been 3 hours, and no one was coming to help us. Even our balcony door was blocked and couldn't get opened. Hours went by, and we were getting hungry and worried. My brother and I were in separate rooms. My parents were so worried that something terrible was going to happen. My dad couldn't stop a second without banging the door. Then all of a sudden, we heard a noise. Someone came into the apartment and was walking around the living room. I could hear the steps. Then all of a sudden, a room got opened. It was my parents' room. Someone just went inside our parents' room, and our parents immediately started screaming. I was so scared something bad had happened to them. I could hear them talking, but I couldn't hear clearly. Then that person went out of the apartment. And I screamed, "Are you all right?" Luckily my parents answered, and they said that someone had just come to their room. They said that that person had a mask on, and they couldn't see who it was. That person had asked my parents for a big amount of money. Money was never an issue for my parents, so of course, they agreed to give the money. We noticed that my brother, Troji, was not talking at all as we were talking. We were screaming his name, but he was not answering. It had been hours, and we were so worried. I couldn't help but cry. Then that dangerous stranger came into the apartment again and told us loudly that they had taken Troji and would not bring him back unless they saw the amount of money they had asked for. They left us only one boiled egg, just so we could starve. That day was one of the most challenging days that I have ever experienced. I was so scared of Troji and where he was. My parents were crying non-stop. I wanted to hug them and tell them that everything is going to be all right. I fell asleep crying, and then I woke up by the noise of the door of the apartment. That guy had come back and gone to my parents' room and took my dad. They took my dad so he could withdraw money from the bank and give it to them. My dad tried to ask for help on the street, but the guy said to him that if he tried to do something stupid, they would kill him. My dad got even more worried now and said that he would not give the money unless he saw Troji. But they said to him that Troji was going to be waiting in the apartment and that we were good to go and free. But my dad came back, and Troji wasn't there. We were all so stressed, and I hadn't gotten out of the room for 2 days now. There was a lot of questions running through our mind. Who are they? How did they know that we were here and that my father was rich? Is it someone we know? I know that I said that Troji is annoying and that I hated him, but he is still my little brother. And I care about him. I missed his stupid voice and our stupid little fights. Another night had come, and we all fell asleep. I woke up in the morning and noticed that my room door was opened. I ran so fast like a kid on Christmas Day. I ran so fast to my parents' room to see if they were all right. They were sleeping. I woke up them hugging so hard. We were happy that we were together, at least. But our little Troji wasn't there yet. We ran to see if the door of the apartment had been opened. But, no. It was still closed. My dad tried to find ways so that we could escape. But, nothing was near us. No houses. No restaurants. Then it hit us that it would be better if we just stayed and waited. They could bring Troji anytime now. After some hours, a car pulled to the apartment. We took a look from the window and noticed that Troji was there. We were so happy. He came running into the apartment and had a key. He opened the door of our apartment. That was the first time that I hugged Troji. He explained to us everything that had happened to him. He said that the guys took him and held him in a house. He said that they didn't do anything bad to him. Then, we went to the person who owned the apartment and told them about everything that had happened to us. We decided to look at the cameras and see if we could find the suspects. We noticed that there were 2 guys, and one of them had no masks on. The police then had identified the suspect and then arrested him. Apparently, the guy was a tourist, and he just wanted to make some extra money. He didn't know who we were or where we were from. He had followed us that night that we went out. I am writing this while we are going on our way home. Our vacation had turned into a nightmare, and we couldn't get our money back. But we didn't care. We were glad that we were all right and together. We just wanted to get home safe. It's crazy what people do for money, and they are capable of putting lives in danger. This experience made me realize that anything can happen in a very unpredictable way. This experience didn't make me love Italy less. It was just bad timing. I can't wait to visit it again. My name is Beatrix, and I just wanted to tell a story about what happened 2 years ago in my life. A lot has happened in 2 years. 2 years ago, I was only 16-year-old. Life was not easy. I grew up in a very toxic household. I grew up with my parents fighting all the time. I don't know if there was a day when my parents didn't fight about something. But, when it came to me, they were completely different people. My parents are the sweetest parents anyone could ever ask for. They care about me. They love me. I am their only child. I was spoiled and loved like no other. But, sometimes, love is not just enough. Marriage is not just about love. Marriage is about commitment, and being responsible for what you do and say. Communication is key, but my parents didn't have that. I was only 16-year-old, but I was old enough to notice that they didn't know how to communicate with each other. My parents always fought, but I knew that it wasn't that serious until one day. I remember it like it was yesterday. I got woken up from the sound of my mother screaming to my father. My father came home late the other night, and my mother had found out that he cheated. My mother decided to file for divorce, even though my dad begged her to stay. I remember I felt so bad for my mother. No woman deserves to get cheated on. They decided not to live together anymore. One day they had asked me a very important question. They asked me if I'd choose to stay with my mother or with my father. I loved them equally. I mean, they are my parents. But, the one that got cheated on was my mother. I couldn't be the one to let her down too. Plus, my mother had always been like a father too. She has always been there for me. So, that's what I did. I chose my mother. We left home. At that time, my mother didn't have a job. We had no job and nowhere to live. The only person that we could call to help us was my grandmother. My grandmother lived alone, so we had the opportunity to live there for some months until we figured some things out. Living at my grandma's house was fun. My mother was searching for a job. So, she was always out doing job interviews. Most of the time, I was home only with my grandmother. I loved her cooking. She cooked with love. She had told me some of her secret recipes. We would talk for hours. She would tell me about her life when she was a teenager and how much she missed my grandpa. I felt safe at my grandmother's house. The vibes were different. But, during that time, my mother was in a terrible place. My father had always been wealthy. When we went to the court, he won everything. His lawyers helped him take all of his wealth for himself, and not give anything to my mother or me. My father was almost making me go with him. But, I was old enough to choose. To this day, I still don't regret going with my mother. My father had shown his true colors. If he really loved us, he would help us and give us some money. At least for a good start. My mother struggled to find a job, and I remember feeling so bad. She was trying so hard. I remember wanting to quit school to work something and help her. But she didn't let me. She always said that I should work hard and finish school to be independent. Months went by, and my mother still hadn't gotten a job. At that time, my mother had turned into a whole different person. She was angry at life, at everything. Even at 16-year-old, I understood that she felt like everyone had let her down. At some point, she was ready to give up. She stopped going to job interviews. I remember how she didn't even want to get a bath. She was deep in depression, and she always used to fight with my grandmother. My mother used to put the anger that she had on my grandmother. One day, they got into a huge pointless argument, and my mother had enough. My grandmother was crying, saying that we didn't need to go. But, my mother thought that this would be for the better. This way, my mother would try harder and not give up so easily. My grandmother gave us our grandfather's old car. She couldn't drive anymore, so she thought we would put it to good use. She gave us her car, food, clothes and some money. It was winter, and we had no idea where to go. I remember us driving with no destination. It was snowing so much. It was almost Christmas time. It should have been the most wonderful time of the year. But, not this time. We drove and drove. We didn't know where to go, and we hadn't much money with us. It was the middle of the night, and we got tired. We found a mountain not so far from the city, and we decided to park the car there and stay the night. We shouldn't even have parked there. We would have been arrested. But, we had no other choice. I remember I was so scared to sleep in the car. We were scared if someone would knock in our windows and try to kidnap us or something. I hadn't had much sleep on the first night, but then I got used. But, the car was a blessing. Without it, we would be sleeping on the streets in the cold. We lived in our car for almost 2 weeks. It was the most challenging time of our lives. At that time, I wasn't going to school anymore. So, we kind of just stayed and hoped that my mother could find a job. I missed my bed, and I missed having a hot shower. It had been days that I hadn't had a proper meal. We used to eat cheap fast food with the bit of money that our grandmother gave us. The nights were so cold, and we used to sleep hugging each other. I remember asking my mother to go back to our grandmother's house, but my mother just wanted to make it alone. Even though we lived in the car, she never lost a job interview. I remember how she used to play it off at times like everything was all right, and how she used to sing and dance to not make me feel worried. But I knew that deep inside, she was sad and anxious until one day, one perfect day, I was staying in the car, and I saw my mother by the window. She told me some good news. She said that she had got a job at a restaurant, and she will start working from tomorrow. My mother told the restaurant owner about our life, our situation, and he said that we could sleep there. At his restaurant. Our life was about to be changed forever, and we just didn't know it yet. We took our car and drove there. The restaurant was so beautiful and comfy. We met with the boss. My mother's boss was so generous and kind, and he was named Mitchell. He had asked me how school was going, but I told him that I couldn't afford school right now. I told him that I wanted to work and help my mother. He accepted that, and he had made me an assistant. I worked as my mother's assistant. Life was beautiful during that time. I could finally have some good sleep and eat some warm, good meal. I woke up early, worked, and had met some beautiful people. It felt good living and having a routine. It had been 2 years since my mother and I worked at the restaurant. I could tell that my mother was happy. I was happy too. During our time working at Mitchell's restaurant, something beautiful had happened. Love had happened. My mother fell in love with her boss, Mitchell. Who wouldn't love Mitchell? He was so kind and gentle, and he had helped us a lot. He became like my father in such a short time. He had never been married before because he had always been busy with his restaurant. But he loved my mother more than anyone before. He loved kids, and he treated me like I was his daughter. However, my mother's goal now is to be independent. She knew what she went through when she got divorced. She doesn't want to make that mistake again. For those 2 years that we had been working, my mother and I saved money. Since my mother always wanted to have something on her own, we decided to open a coffee shop. We thought it would be a great idea since I wasn't going to school during that time. I wanted to take a break and just kind of put our life together. Plus, my mother needed my help. We were excited about this, and we had decided to tell Mitchell. Even though we wouldn't be working at his restaurant, we loved the idea. He said that that's okay and that we should follow our dreams. And that's what we did. We followed our dreams. New York has the most beautiful places and views, so it was easy for us to find a place to open our coffee shop. Mitchell had helped us a lot. He had helped us with painting the walls of our store. We decided to give the store a vintage look, and it turned out so good. The coffee shop was so small, but it was so cute. The coffee shop had large windows, and you could see everything that was happening outside. It's a place where you could bring your favorite book and just read for hours while drinking your coffee. Our coffee shop is open 24/7. I work there as a waiter, and I love it. At first, it was just my mother and me, but now we have 4 employees. All of our 4 employees are females. Our employees are women that needed help, just like we did. It feels good helping people. I know how it feels to need help and not get any. Every day is a good day at our coffee shop. Every day we meet new beautiful people, and I have made a lot of friends. After some time, my mother and Mitchell decided not to waste time and have a wedding. It was one of the most beautiful weddings that I have ever seen. It felt good seeing my mother in a white dress and happy. Maybe it is time for me to have a brother or a sister. Who knows? My mother and I often visit the grandmother. They are on good terms now. We had given her car back, even though she insisted on not to. But we wanted to leave everything that reminded us of bad times. My grandmother comes to our coffee shop almost every day. She says that my coffee is her favorite coffee to drink. I am going to school now, after that big break. Every day after school, I come here to our coffee shop, and I help my mother. Are you curious about what happened with my father? Well, I don't know what happened with him. We hadn't heard from him since my mother filed the divorce. He hadn't even called to see if we were okay. But that doesn't matter. We are okay now. Better than never. I just wanted to share my story and say that life works in very unpredictable ways, and that you should never give up. Life has its ups and downs, and that's the beauty of it. We should embrace the good and the bad times. Hi, I'm Mira. My boyfriend, Lopez, and I are the perfect match for each other. We have our ups and downs, but beyond that, we are good for each other. We love mysteries and games, and that was why we decided to stay at the Albertsons, Lopez parents' beach house in Miami, before it is placed for sale. What we didn't realize was that we have to grow up. At the beach house, we had so much fun as usual. It was going as we had planned until we found this old safe. All we could see were pictures and nothing else. But these pictures isn't what we were expecting in the old crooked safe. We wanted more. But all we could lay our hands on were these old pictures. Do they worth the effort? You're about to find out. I, Bruno, my baby brother, and my papa live in the countryside. My mum died during Bruno's labor. It has then been my duty to take care of him. I was his mother figure. My father hadn't considered remarrying since then. I think he had considered it, but he might be scared of how I would react. But deeply, I don't care. My father works with a security agency at a multinational company not far away from home. Due to the nature of his job, he stays at work at night. So, when I was young, I spent most of the time with the Albertsons, our neighbors. Initially, Lopez and I were not on talking terms. I did visit the Albertsons' residence to play with Rodrigo, my only friend. People might think we might end up dating, but we are too close to be dating. Rodrigo is my very good friend. We planned everything together. We never made any decision behind each other. As kids, we had our own rules and codes which were still effective until recently. We needed to grow up. Rodrigo was a smart kid and his vision was to become a scientist. He got us into a lot of trouble with his little science projects. Lopez was quite older than us. He never participated in our games, and it looked like he and his little brother aren't close. Not a bit. They did fight over every little thing. Lopez was 2 years our senior, and he only talked with people of his caliber. I looked older than his age, and he is a lot mature, but he easily gets himself into conflict. I didn't like him at all, and Rodrigo did tell me a lot about him. I knew I sickened him, and he disgusted me too. Lopez wasn't as smart as his little brother, which made him get some harsh responses from his parents. But he is good at playing football. The coach once told the school that he had a great future ahead of him if he keep up the pace. We always anticipate a holiday. The Albertsons and I spend the holiday at their beach house in Miami. My father would take Bruno to Aunt Nina's to spend the break. At the beach house, we had more space for our little experiment, and it was convenient to blow things up. Lopez did go to the beach to party. He was never at home. Mr. and Mrs. Albertson tried varieties of things. They tried yoga and some weird religious practices. Lopez and I wondered how they enjoyed those things. The only thing they did that we are fans of is the different types of cocktails they made. As kids, we would take some sips whenever the duo wasn't looking. Mrs. Albertson was a very good cook. She loves to bake as well. She made her recipes. I did assist her in the kitchen. During those times, we did have a heart-to-heart discussion. The beach house was our haven. Lopez and I started tying knots when Rodrigo and I were in grade 10 and Lopez was in his finals. I was at their place that afternoon to see Rodrigo. I went to Rodrigo's room, but he wasn't there. I looked around the house but could not find Rodrigo. I then decided to go check for him in the backyard. As I opened the door to the backyard, I was Lopez swimming in the swimming pool. He was flabbergasted to see me. I didn't notice a thing until I saw him covering his rear with his 2 hands. He asked me to turn around, and I obeyed immediately. "What are you looking for?" he asked with a shaky voice. "I am here looking for Rodrigo. I didn't know you would be here," I responded. "As you can see, Rodrigo isn't home," he rejoined. I was about to leave the backyard when he called on me. "Please help me with my underpants that is on the line," he requested of me. I got the underpants, trying my possible best to look back. I threw the underpants, but my aim was poor. It fell in the water. Lopez had to swim to get it. The underpants were wet, but he didn't have any other choice but to wear them like that. I was still standing with my back turned towards the Lopez and my right hands on my face. He came out of the pool and tapped me. I was startled and looked at him. He is a tall and well-built young man. "Thank you," he said, pointing to the wet underpants. "I am sorry," I responded. He left me behind and found his way to the main building. That wasn't surprising. He does that a lot. Since Lopez wasn't home, I left the Albertsons' residence. I texted Rodrigo, who didn't reply to my message. I should be worried because that would be the first time he would ever go out without telling me first, but the scene with Lopez was on my mind. I couldn't get it off my mind. Rodrigo called me later, and apologized. I wasn't interested in his plea. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Lopez. I couldn't believe that I was smiling. Am I in love with Lopez? No, this can't be happening. Even if I showed my advances, Lopez would not even look at my side. And if he does, Rodrigo might not talk to me again for having intimate affairs with his brother. And I can't afford to lose Rodrigo. I had spent my whole life with Rodrigo. Getting separated from him would hurt both of us. I don't want to be the cause of our parting. I tried to get Lopez off my mind by spending the night talking about life with Papa. I slept off after a few hours discussing life in Mexico. From that moment henceforth, I tried showing my intentions to Lopez. He wasn't even looking at my side. Rodrigo may have noticed because he had been acting kind of funny, but he didn't say anything. After several trials, he took up the courage to ask him out physically. He just looked at me and walked away, leaving me standing. It was as if I was not there. From that day on, he would just smile whenever he set his eyes on me. Was he impressed, or he was making fun of me? Lopez and his classmates were preparing for their prom, and my class was also trying to create an event for the end of the year. I and Rodrigo were also busy trying to pull stuff. All our effort were futile since all Rodrigo could pull was not social enough. Eventually, my class settled for a kissing booth. Lopez was nowhere to be found. I think he wanted to look best for his prom. The day of the prom had come. I persuaded Rodrigo to attend so that I could see the graduating boy. Rodrigo was reluctant at first but obeyed our rule number 5. Do not let down your bestie's request. At the hall, Lopez's classmate came in twos, male and female except for Lopez. He was the only single guy at the party. I felt sorry for him, but my hands are tied. For the first time in a long time, he recognized us. He kept waving his hands at us at every opportunity. He took some photos with us. That night, Lopez and Rodrigo had their first brother thing. They had several shots, joked, and played some manly games. Eventually, the two of them got drunk. I had to help the two brothers home. It wasn't easy. I got a taxi and got them home safe. At their place, I assisted Rodrigo to his room first. The boy slept off immediately. I came down to help Lopez to his room. Lopez was so drunk that he was just speaking gibberish. He laughed more often. We eventually made it to his bed. I dropped him. As I was about to take my leave, he held my hand and murmured some words which I didn't understand. I successfully left his room. I called Papa, telling him I won't be coming home that night. He was fine with it. I made myself comfortable on the sofa. I didn't know when I slept off. The next morning, Lopez was the one to wake me up. "Thank you for yesterday," he said as he grinned. Before I could say "you're welcome," he left for the swimming pool in their backyard. Rodrigo followed him. He was still hanging over the previous night's drunkenness. He sat beside me on the sofa, crossed his hand around my neck. "I love you," he said. "You will forever be my best friend." Oh, what a relief. I can't imagine dating Rodrigo. After skipping through various TV channels, he eventually decided to join his brother at the swimming pool. Mrs. Albertson came downstairs, greeted me, and headed straight to the kitchen. I followed her immediately. We chatted a little as we cooked for the boys. Most of the discussion that day was about boys. I didn't feel comfortable, but I enjoyed it. Mrs. Albertson had been the closest thing I had to a mother since my mum died from Bruno's labor. She is always there for me. After the cooking, I summoned the courage to join the boys at the poolside. To my surprise, the two boys were having fun. Wow, that was amazing. I stood at the poolside, trying to join in the ongoing moment, unknowing to me. Rodrigo pulled me into the pool. My dress got wet, but I love it too. It was a day I would never forget. After the whole fun, Mrs. Albertson served us our meal. Everyone ate and Lopez joined in our stupid games. He was not good at following rules. He cheated his ways to victory every time, but we didn't care. It was fun for us. Bruno came looking for me, but instead of telling Papa had called upon me, he made himself at home and started playing video games. The day was fun. Bruno and I got home later that evening. Papa wasn't home, but he left a letter behind. He had gone for his security duties. I cooked before leaving. We served ourselves, had a little of siblings jiffy before going to bed. On my bed, I was exultant. I took my phone and started chatting with Rodrigo. We chat for quite a time before saying our goodbyes. I slept off instantly. I was very tired from the day's activities. After an incredible weekend, it was time to prepare for the kissing booth. My class pulls this off. Rodrigo got a kiss from her dream girl, Lara. It seemed she also had a crush on the guy. I was quite jealous. All my classmates had been paired with their secret lovers. It was my time to receive the surprise kiss. I was blindfolded and I was meant to wait. I waited longer than usual. I was about to lose hope when someone drew my head closer to give me a passionate kiss. This is surely Rodrigo, I said to myself. I was so thankful then I remembered Rodrigo had never kissed before. He can't be this good, and more so this fellow was quite sporty. Unlike my Rodrigo. I took of the fold and lo, it was Lopez. Everyone was cheering us up. I caught the big fish. A graduating student gave me a surprise kiss. After the passionate kiss, Lopez then asked me, "Will you be my girlfriend?" I wanted to say yes, but when I looked at the audience, Rodrigo is gone. And Lara shrugged, realizing I was looking for Rodrigo. I couldn't say yes, even though I wanted to. I left at once looking for Rodrigo. I eventually found Rodrigo alone at the cafeteria. I guessed he wasn't too happy with the show. I can't blame you. I would have done the same thing if I was to be in his shoes. I sat beside him. We didn't speak for a while. Then I said, "Rule number 13, be happy for each other no matter the situation." He looked at me in dismay and there was silence once more. Finally, he spoke. "This isn't right," he said. "You can't be in an affair with my brother. It is going to affect our friendship. It is going to be weird seeing for kiss my brother while we sit side by side. I thought he was your big brother too." He kept talking. I thought he wasn't going to stop and I would just stay muted and listen to him all night. Then I heard, "Don't you have anything to say?" Oh, finally, it is my time to say something, but there is nothing for me to say. I summoned some courage and told him that I guess Lopez likes me. "Do you like him?" He revolted. I think I responded slimily. "Since when has this been going on?" he asked once more. "Tonight," I answered. He looked at my face and said, "I am happy for you, but you should have told me earlier. Let's go celebrate." Lippy. I almost jumped off my feet. But I kept cool. On our way back to where the event was taking place, we met Lara, who was looking around for her newly found boyfriend. Lara was the shy one and she barely talked. But I guessed, the two are united by science. Those are the best two in the class. Funny enough, they don't compete. Rodrigo introduced Lara to me as if we had never met before. "Lara, this is Mira, my best friend, and Mira. This is Lara, my girlfriend." Lara looked at him in awe while I laughed. I couldn't believe what I just heard. Lara rested on him and he crossed his hand around her neck. While that was going on, Lopez showed. He smiled at his little brother, who could not pretend he is disappointed. Then he came for me. He took me by the hand and said, "Hi guys, who cares for some drink?" "Don't get me drunk like the last time," exclaimed Rodrigo. Things were going on fine between us until it was time for Lopez to go to college. There was this unhappiness within me. Rodrigo didn't care. He spent most of his time with Lara now. I am happy for them. But it was my time to be lonely. Lopez promised me he would call every day. I pretended to be fine with the suggestion, but I would miss my newly found soulmate. As promised, Lopez keeps the tab every day. It has now become a routine. We always talked about how we spent our days. He talked about his newly found friends. Lopez's new clique is made up of 3 other boys and a girl. I requested for their picture, which he sent without asking him twice. There I saw Happy. You can't believe it. If Happy had competed for Ms. World, she would have won. She's the most beautiful creature I had set my eyes on in the last 17 years of my life. I wouldn't have suspected anything if the lady was sitting a yard away from my Lopez. But instead, she was sitting right next to him with her hands all over Lopez. I started getting suspicious of Lopez. Who would want to start honestly with a high school guy when you have a beautiful college girl within your reach? No one, and this time, not even Lopez would. I asked him who she was. He said they're just friends. I wanted to believe him, but I didn't believe him. Who would have believed such things? I called him a liar and stopped talking to him. I called and texted, but I didn't respond. Time had passed. Rodrigo and Lara are doing very fine. Lopez and I had not talked for a while now. We are now in our finals. It was time for our prom. Being single felt weird. Lopez and Lara had gotten admission into the same college. I was still keeping my admission on hold. I wanted to be a lawyer, not a science guru like those two. And our rule number 4 is to attend the same college. I wanted to go to the same college as Rodrigo, who had been adamant about it, but I have a career to pursue myself. I had to lie to him that I had chosen the same college as his. He was very happy that he hugged me. I told him not to tell anyone yet since I want to surprise others. It didn't make sense to him, but he obliged. The other college is the same as Lopez. I think a little part of me was still with him. Prom was fast approaching. I had a dance competition to perform in. I had been paired with Wilson. Wilson was really good. I would have loved to partner with Rodrigo, but he had been his usual self since he met Lara. We still talked, but not as we used to. So, I had to settle for Wilson. Wilson seemed cool, and there was nothing between us. Little did I know that this guy really liked me, or he might just be infatuated. At the dance competition, we were the last to be called upon. Towards the end of our performance, the audience had started applauding us. After the last move, Wilson kissed me. I played along because I didn't want to embarrass him on stage. While I was deep in the kiss, I saw a figure standing up from the stands and left. I recognized that person. That was Lopez for sure. I rushed up the presentation and ran after him. I looked everywhere but could not find him. Then hello. A female voice from behind said. I looked back. It was Happy. So, Lopez came from my presentation with her little girlfriend. I looked at her as if she fell in a pit filled with swine shit. To my surprise, she didn't react at all. She smiled at me and stretched his hand for a handshake. We shook hands and she requested of me if we could talk. Yes, I said reluctantly. I wasn't comfortable with the discussion because she was speaking to me as if she was my elder sister. Then she asked the big question. Have you moved on? I looked at her face. We are here today because Lopez wanted me to see her little girlfriend that stopped talking to him because of me. Lopez had said a lot about you and I wanted to see it for myself. I was disappointed in myself. I hadn't moved on, I replied. The guy, Wilson, we aren't dating. It was part of the performance. To kiss, she exclaimed. Wilson added, we didn't practice that, I replied. Where is Lopez? I asked her in quite a hurry. I don't know, she replied. I don't know anywhere here. Do you mind taking me around? We stood up and took a walk. Even though we came first, I missed the award presentation. I didn't care anymore. I wanted to reconcile with Lopez as soon as possible. We ended up at a bar. She demanded we take a few shots. I couldn't decline. We started with dry gin till we get to vodka. This girl is good. If addiction is a polite word, I would have used it, but it isn't. We competed and I lost on every count. We built a close relationship within hours. While we are having a splendid time, Rodrigo, Lara, and Lopez came by. Lara and Rodrigo came close while Lopez stayed in a distance. I guessed he was still angry after the show I made. I walked towards him, gave him a peck and whispered in his ears, there is nothing between me and that guy. He said, if I see that guy, I promised, I am going to punch him in the face. I love you, I replied instead. He grinned as I dragged him towards the others. We had a night of our lives. Happy left the next morning. Guessed Lopez would be staying home for Christmas. We were enjoying the break. I and Lopez finally had our intimate moment. The young man is good. I stayed in his place for a week straight. This Christmas, Bruno will be staying at home. He is now 10. He told Papa that he is old enough. He wanted to go camping with his best friend, a girl. Papa was fine with it. I got suspicious, but did not need my advice on this one. I got home after a week. I missed my little brother. I wanted to see how he was doing. The little guy didn't need me around anymore. He was doing the cooking, washing, and setting the house all by himself. I asked him how he pulled this off, all by himself. He told me that when I was not at home, Papa had been seeing a nice lady. She helped a lot at home and she taught me some things. Papa was going to ask you if he should propose to her, he continued. There was this mixed feeling within me. I was happy for him, but introducing a new person to the family feels weird. Bruno was fine with this. I would soon be going to college. Someone has to take care of Bruno while I am away. I sighed. The house looked different. I couldn't find things where I had known them to be. My time in this house is almost over, I guessed. I got to the cabinet to get myself something to eat. I was about to sit down and grab the remote when Papa showed up. He settled down a while from the night's job before initiating a discussion on the new lady. Her name is Doris, he mentioned. She is a nice lady. He continued. I wasn't comfortable discussing my father's wife to be with him. He did all the talking. He told him he would be going on a date with her, where he would propose to her. Can I go ahead? He asked. Yes, of course, if you like her. Moreover, Bruno does, I replied. I eventually found a good reason to flee. The next morning I came back home. No one was home except for Doris. I was shocked, so she had started sleeping over. She introduced herself and we exchanged regards. She was quite nice as aforementioned by Bruno. Although there was this weird silence in the house, we tried to converse a little. While we were both enjoying the TV program, Papa showed up in a new coat. He said he and Doris are going on a date. As he was about to leave, he asked me to wish them luck. Good luck and have fun, I responded. Doris waved and grinned at me as the duo left for their date. I was about to rest when I received Rodrigo's message. It reads, "We are off to the beach house. Are you in?" This was the perfect excuse I needed to provide privacy from my dad and his new butterfly. I quickly got some stuff packed in a small box, dropped a note for Bruno to say goodbye, and left the house. The Albertsons wanted to put the beach house on sale since they would be retiring soon and all their kids will be going to college. No one would be visiting the beach house anymore. Lopez suggested we had a meeting with them. At the meeting, the two made known their plans. Rodrigo and Lopez were able to convince them. They said their parents should permit us to stay for a while. During the stay at the place, we would take care of the place and make it perfect for sale to attract wealthy buyers. Mr. and Mrs. Albertson agreed to it. We enjoyed our stay at the beach house. Rodrigo and I unraveled all we had done when we were kids while Lopez and I made love at night. Lara also came to visit. We all joined the big party at the beach. Wilson also came around. This is weird. Lopez suspected I was the one who invited him. I told him I was not the one. Things got on the tension between Lopez and Wilson. I had to beg Wilson to leave, even though it was against his will. He left. Again there was peace. After a while, we were tired of fun as we prepared for college and make the house ready for sale. Lara had left for his parents' place. Papa does call sometimes. He is doing fine with Doris and Bruno was enjoying himself. While we were arranging the house, we saw an old safe. Lopez carried it out. It was made of metal and it had a lock. Rodrigo and Lopez tried calling their parents as regards the sacred old safe. They didn't say. They concluded that it might be there before the Albertsons bought the beach house. This news spurs the two brothers to make a heist, their first to be precise. They tried cutting off the lock but to no avail. Rodrigo was tired of the stress, while Lopez was angry about him unable to open the safe. They later found out that what was in will remain in, if they tried any more stupid things. After thorough attempts, they decided to get a lock specialist. On the day of the heist, the lock specialist came. He didn't look like someone that could pull such a thing. He was just a nerd. She even came along with a Scotch bag. At first we thought he had his tools in the bag but later we found out the bag was empty. He just loves carrying that bag. He started tending to the safe. The guy is good. He opened the safe just within 5 minutes. We expected to see some antiques, cash or precious stones. The lock guy opened the safe and hissed. He adjusted his glasses and went to Lopez to collect his cash. He left immediately. I guessed he was disappointed. Lopez and Rodrigo rushed to the safe to open it. "What is this?" shouted Lopez. "Our childhood photos. Is this a joke?" Rodrigo went forward and started checking through the pictures. He was enjoying himself. I moved forward and joined him. We both enjoyed the pictures. We made jest over it. It was fun for us but it wasn't for Lopez. He was angry because he just wasted some cash on an old safe filled with memories. We are happy after this event. We placed the house on sale, and we had concluded to move on. Rodrigo and Lara moved forward with their school, while I followed Lopez to his college. It was a happy ending for everyone and we realized we needed to move on. I reunited with Happy and Lopez introduced me to the rest of the crew. Lopez had learned to control his anger issue. Today, we still joke about the old safe. The mystery is that, who kept our childhood photos in a safe and locked them? That we don't know. All we knew was that we had beautiful childhood that we can't return to anymore. So sad, but we have to grow up. We have to grow up.
I'm Stephanie. I live in law with my parents. They were everything to me until I met Jude, my new boyfriend. I love him so much, I don't want to get separated from him never and ever. I met Jude a few days after my parents and I moved to LA because my father had just been transferred to lead a branch of the stockbroking company he works for in our old city of residence. At first, I didn't buy the idea because I would have to lose all my friends and, most importantly, my plans to get back at Truce, my first boyfriend. Truce was 3 years my senior, but our relationship was delicate. I felt safe whenever I was with him. He was an honest guy, classy and straightforward before everything changed. He was the head of the football team then, and I was just a girl on the cheerleading team. My parent knew about my relationship with Truce, and I don't think they were happy about it. My father didn't really act up, but my mom, let's just say she was acting like a typical mother who thinks her child isn't in safe hands, would do. I really appreciate their concerns, but I thought Truce wasn't that bad. Truce did visit my place from time to time, and he's always welcomed. Truce, who had no other objectives, don't waste time in the living room. We always head straight to my bedroom, you know. I was the lousy one. I screamed a lot and said so many naughty words. I think my parents heard but weren't bothered, while Truce, on the other hand, just remained cool. I did think I didn't satisfy him, but he never said that. What else can I ask for, you'll say? Moreover, my parents were busy individuals. That hasn't changed a bit anyways. They traveled on business trips a lot. I frequently followed Truce out to places or clubs. Most of them weren't so cool, but I didn't care. I felt safe with Truce. He was like my big brother. Though still against my parents' counsel, my association with Truce was perfect until that fateful night, one of the nights my parents went on their business trips as usual. Truce came to my place. As usual, he called on me, and as I was dressing up, he bumped in and met me not fully dressed. He took a long gaze at me from the head down. I noticed this, so I stopped dressing. I know I have a good shape. Assuming the mirror was lying to me, people say I took after my mom. She's hot. I've not gotten all those curves, and the 2 babies on my chest are not fully grown, but I had potentials. Truce kept admiring me. His mouth was gaping up. Elle could tell he wanted to have me, but I was teasing him. I hurried up with my dressing. I noticed he was hard, but he kept his cool. I smiled. To satisfy his lust, I kissed him passionately and whispered to his ear when we returned. We found our way to his motorcycle outside. It wasn't like those pretty bikes in Hollywood movies, but it rocks for a high school student to have his own bike. He started the cycle, and I jumped on it from behind. I held him by the waist as he zoomed off. We stopped in front of a club. This one was new. We had been to different clubs repeatedly, but not this one. I started getting uncomfortable. I looked at Truce's face, and he smiled back at me. I gulped in a handful of saliva purposefully to show my discomfort, but his emotion didn't really change. Then he came close to me as if he was going to hug me and whispered to my hearing something I never forgot: "This is where I really belong." Had I known, I would have taken to the heel, but I remained stubborn despite my instincts. Let's just assume I love being gullible, at least for that time or for the worse my whole life. My life is about to change for good on the positive part, but looking at that situation, things didn't go as planned. Well, I never had any plan, Truce plan at all. This was the day I will never forget. This was the day that changed my family's life. My father took that gig in LA even though he was doing just fine here. My mom thought leaving was the best too, at least she would avoid shame, and it was depression for me on my side. I remembered vividly after that night, I said to myself, never will I date any guy until the end of high school. That didn't last much. Jude came into the picture earlier than the end of high school. Maybe I can't be trusted with my own words either. My emotion got the best of me, and I love it. Truce placed his hands around my neck as we walked towards the bouncer. I was a lot shorter than him, but I pretended to be cool with it. He started muttering some jokes that I found not funny anymore due to my current situation, but continued credulous. When we got to the bouncer, I became the stranger. It was as if he had known the bouncer longer than I knew my mom. There was great chemistry between the big guy and Truce. He allowed us in without asking for any ID. Funny, right? I know it is a culture for bouncers to ask for IDs, but this time was different. My mind flashed back to when we first met after a football game against the other best team in town, my then high school team's archenemy Oaks Christian. As the team's captain, Truce got injured early in the game. He could not proceed. He was stretched out of the playing zone, and since I was the youngest in the cheerleading team, I basically did not cheerlead at all. I was more like the errand girl in the group. I got the first aid box and walked reluctantly towards the team's captain. No one stopped me, not even the teachers. Everyone kept looking at the brave small girl walking towards the biggest boy in school. I have the skills since I was part of the Red Cross community in my junior school. I tended to his wound and made him very comfortable. Then I saw a smile on his face. I think he was satisfied with my services. He said, "I am Truce Dempsey, what is your name?" I can't believe my ears. Almost confused, I replied, "I am Stephanie Brown." Then he said, "Will you go have coffee with me tomorrow at the cafe?" Somebody hit me. The biggest boy in high school just asked me out. I carefully said, "Yes, I would love to have a cup of coffee." That was just 3 months ago from this fateful day. I thought I knew him, but that night I realized I didn't know him that much. I wanted to cry already. We entered the club. Almost everybody recognized Truce. I was surprised. How long has he been visiting this place? It was as if he was there the night before. He introduced me to everyone. The guys were top-notch, and the girls were so hot. Well, I'm the youngest, and I had potentials. The ladies are sexy to behold, and their curves are heaven. I felt like holding their 2 babies in my hands. I felt like an opposite gender by gazing at them. I noticed all the details they possessed. Before getting caught off guard, I quickly brought out my phone and started watching some videos. While I was busy with my phone, the ladies were whispering and laughing. I think they were talking about me, but who cares? I shrugged it off as I tried to find out what the boys were up to. Those guys were really planning something big or maybe crazy. Truce looked at my side from time to time and winkled at me at every instance. Everything there was kind of creepy. The noise was so loud like every other club. The bartenders were doing their job, but 10 people were in attendance. All are familiar individuals, with me being the only stranger. The guys are done with their presumed board meeting, and each guy went for their girls. Truce came to me and asked me what will I love to take. This wasn't the best moment to get drunk. I replied, "Water is fine." He looked at me in disappointment, but I didn't care at this moment. I repeated I would love cold water. He stood up, went straight to the bar and got himself a few beers, and got me 2 chilled bottles of water from the big freezer beside the bar. I sipped my water while every other person was marrying. The party moved from seriousness to naughtiness. The other girls are doing their thing before I could get my head around what is going on. A certain girl was really riding on a guy's lap so hard. Looking at his face, you can tell he will soon go. The girl was so good. Several hours had gone, a lot of adult scenes. All the guys present had wet themselves except Truce, who was on his 6th bottle of beer. Then, here came the moment they had been waiting for. I was here to be initiated as Truce's new girlfriend, and I knew nothing about it. Dave, Truce's closest pal in the clique and undeniably the gang leader, broke it to me. I would be stripped naked, and all the guys will take turns on me. I fired back at the idea, and they all laughed. Lucy, the sexiest, curviest, and most endowed of the other 4 girls, said, "It's the ritual only once, and you're welcome to the club, baby." I tried to fight my way out of the club. The ladies stripped me off my clothes, and the guys started dancing around me. I felt ashamed, and I cried. I was let out to go, and Truce made me go home all by myself that night. That night, I will never forget. I wept all night, my face swollen. Truce didn't call or check on me. Even without saying it, I knew it was over. The following day, I got dressed for school. On getting to the school environment, everyone's eyes were locked on me. There were whispers and disgusting faces everywhere. It was only me that was left to wonder what was going on. I got to my class, and the atmosphere was still the same. I sat on my chair, still thinking about what happened last night. Kathy and Elle, my 2 friends, came towards me. They told me about a video of me dancing naked with some unrecognized boys posted on the school website the previous night. What? It was filmed. I said that to myself, but it felt as if I was shouting out loud. No, I am doomed, I softly said to myself. They tried to ask me about what really happened, but I was too down to give a response. Stephanie Brown. That's the principal's voice from the school speaker. "You're wanted in my office now." I stood up from my seat. It looked like the whole world was upon my head. I wanted to melt down. I dragged my feet to the principal's office. My mom and dad were already in his office. He asked me what really happened. I was too ashamed to say anything. My dad couldn't look at my face, and my mom was sobbing silently. The principal asked me to go to the reception. A few minutes later, my parents came out and said to me, "You've been expelled, let's go home." I busted into tears. That was the quietest day in our home. My dad is naturally reticent, but my mom was gratuitously silent. I was in my room with my head deep in the soft pillow crying softly. A few hours later, my parents came in with 2 slices of bread, a plate of fried eggs, and a glass of juice. They sat beside me on the bed, and I could feel Mom rocking my leg. I sat down with my head bowed in shame. They comforted me before my dad revealed that he got a gig in LA and would take the chance. My mom went along with the plan. Deep in my thought, I was visualizing how I was going to get my revenge at Truce. I really don't want to leave, not now. My friends were the best. I didn't want to be separated from them, but I understood that decision was difficult for my parents. They took it because of me. I appreciated their effort. Everyone went along with the idea of leaving everything behind. Later in the evening, my friends came to our place. I updated them. They were initially reluctant. Soon they found out it was for the best. Everyone saw that as a good plan except me. I wanted to get revenge on my mess. They quickly jumped into helping me pack my stuff and assisted my parents in a few rounds. We resumed the journey very early the following day. None of our neighbors was out. I am sure my dad couldn't see the road clearly, but it was his braveness for me. We got to lie before none, moved into our new apartment, and everyone opened a new chapter in their lives. All this just because of my foolishness. My mom got me registered in a new school. The process was easy. I had good grades, and my viral video hadn't reached LA yet. That was a significant relief. I started attending class with the immediate effect of forgetting the past as soon as possible. I was a loner for the first few weeks because I didn't know who to trust anymore. Everyone tried associating themselves with the newbie, but I think I was getting better at avoiding people. That was my newest superpower. Then Abby came into the picture. She had been sitting behind me all semester, and I didn't even notice her. Wow, this girl is good. She talked to no one, and no one talked back to her. She is always reading a novel or writing something no one cared about except her. Her diary is filled with posters of aliens and spaceships. Weird, right? Help me pick my pen. It is between your legs. That voice was new. I never perceived that, and it was 3 months I resumed. I looked back. It was Abby. Babe, she's like an angel. Her lips were white, and the wet lips melted perfectly on them. I was still fantasizing about her when I heard, "Will you please help me with the pen?" "Oh, I'm sorry," I replied. "Here it is." She then raised her eyelid, trying to make me look back. Looking at me from the opposite direction was the class nerd, Jude. Jude is cute. He has a baby face and is the best student in class, but he is not sporty. This boy can't even ride a bicycle, nerd. Abby continued, "He has been looking at you since the professor introduced you to the class. I think he's into you." Why is Abby talking to me? This is strange. I would have been comfortable with this supposed discussion, but he'll be saying anything to me. She introduced me to a stalker. I took it as a setup, faced front, and gave Jude a weird face. Jude looked away with a smile on his face. It was as if his mission was accomplished. I finally noticed him. I felt unsafe and more comfortable. I rushed out to the restroom to calm myself a bit. I entered the classroom and couldn't wait for the bell. Immediately, I heard it. I carried my bag and disappeared from the premises. The following day at school, I got my stuff from my locker, and Jude came by trying to initiate some conversation. I didn't respond to his calls, though he sounded soft. I could pick he couldn't hurt a fly by nay, not him, not now and not anytime soon. Abby whispered to my ear in the class, "Give him a chance, you won't regret it this time, trust me." I looked back in awe. Did she know about it? Was she there? I felt unsecured. I understand how people that had been treated bitterly act, and I could tell you were once a victim, the soft voice continued whispering. I sighed with relief. At least she didn't know about it, I said to myself. What did you care? I whispered back. She smiled and replied, "Here he comes." I turned around and lo, Jude. "Hi, Abby," he greeted. "You good?" Abby responded. I think these two know themselves a lot. I later found out that they are twins, and my name is the leading topic in their house. Jude started with his speech. He wasn't even concentrating. My eyes were locked on his. "Can you hear me?" Jude asked sharply. "Yes," I responded in an apt. "Will you go watch a movie with me tomorrow night and maybe get a drink when returning?" "Is that a date?" I asked in return. "I guessed," he said with a tone of doubt. "Okay, this once," I replied. I couldn't believe I had just said that. That slip of tongue gave me the sweetest experience to date. After the movie night, we started going out. My parents knew about him, and they were happy that I had moved on. I couldn't believe myself, I was reborn. Jude brought me back to life. Unlike Truce, my parents were delighted with my relationship with Jude. God, this guy is well-cultured, a very respectful kid. His weird twin sister became my best and only friend in school. Babe, this girl can talk, only when she's not in the class. I found out she's the lousy type, and Jude is the timid one. That is the opposite in school. Their father works at NASA, that explained the alien and spaceship posters on Abby's diary. Their mom sells flowers in a plant store. Those two are really close, they shared everything without a tip of jealousy. They even shared my time among themselves. They made La my new home. My relationship with Jude was perfect, but we haven't gotten intimate yet. Jude said he could wait. And I really love this guy, but Truce's memory was well seated in my cerebrum. I could recall everything as if it was yesterday. Over a year now, my relationship with Jude Wilson was more pleasant than the early morning sun. I could believe what was happening, it was as if I was in a dreamland. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson are the best. They treat me as one of their own. Brad was the naughty little brother, he is tough to please, I think we will get along. Brad is addicted to his video game. I deduce that it might be natural to him that the real life. Unlike my parents, the Wilsons are very predictable. Mrs. Wilson is always available, but Mr. Wilson barely comes home. Their stamina is kind of regular, everyone knows what to do with time. Everything with the Wilsons is routine, I like this home, and I fit in comfortably. Recently, my parents even allowed me to spend weeks with the Wilsons. It is a home away from home. The Wilsons are not as boring as they look, this person can party, they love traveling and even have movie nights every Friday. We are now in our finals, prom is in a few weeks. Jude seems to be very busy recently. He is the valedictorian, and as the school president, he is planning the best prom yet. Abby wasn't helping her twin brother. I wasn't surprised, she's good at ignoring people, and Jude was okay with it too. I really miss Jude. This is the first time in a long time Jude wasn't really available, but Abby was making up for his brother. I had plans too. My mom and I had been visiting wear stores and boutiques. As the first lady of the prom night, I ought to look my best. I didn't really know my mom was good at selecting dresses until now. All my life, she had been wearing office wears. Initially, I didn't trust her choice, but in time, babe, mom was good. She got me new pairs of heels. I appreciated her, and I gave her arguably the longest hug I have given her. She smiled in satisfaction. Tonight is the prom. Everything was going on fine with me, Jude, Abby, and my parents. Jude called me as usual. I understood he was trying to make up for his absence, but the information was different this time. He said he had provided an Uber for the night. That was thoughtful of him. I informed my dad about the news since he promised me the day before to transport me to the prom center. My dad was okay with it, and he wished me good luck. Braun. That was the doorbell. My mom got the door. Baby, it is Jude, she shouted. I came down the stairs. I was walking like an angel. I wasn't perfect with heels, but try not to rush myself. Jude was in his tuxedo, he looked up to take his queen. He was smiling, and I was smiling. My dad looked so pleased, and my mom joined her hands together, raised towards her chin. I am not getting married yet, I snapped at the duo. I met up with Jude at the end of the stairs. Jude whispered, I love you, beauty. I waved my hands at my parents as we walked towards the black SUV parked in front of the lawn. The driver was in a black suit. The driver turned, he was wearing a black sunglass. The face looked familiar, but how did I know a bearded young man? The driver removed his glasses, and lo, it was Truce. Truce. I can't believe myself. I ran into the house and straight to my room upstairs. What should I have done? My old boyfriend, who tarnished my image, is here to pick me on my prom night. Should I go in the Uber or stay home? What did you think? What did you think? What did you think?
Thanksgiving Day. Hi, I'm Juliet. Today is Thanksgiving Day, but everybody is moody. We are all seated around the dining table, with no one taking the initiative to eat. Mr. Givenchy, the father of the twins, was asked to give us a top, but he instead went out to receive a mysterious call. Fred's head was on the dining table. Jake was not even seated in the dining. He was watching a drama series in the living room. The twins, Mya and Mia, were in disagreement for the first that I knew about. Nobody seems to be in the Thanksgiving mood. My parents, the Bradley, tried to lighten up the atmosphere, but no one seemed interested, especially when my dad started with his weird jokes. My mom was forced to ask him to keep shut. I was starving from the day's work, but I could not eat as well. I'm scared of the people would say. I work at the grocery store some miles away from home. I am trying to raise some money to help my parents since I will be going to college soon. I drop by at the grocery store every working day to take the afternoon shift. My boss, Mr. Durant, is a lovely old man. He is old enough to be my grandfather, but he owns a store. I don't think he is selling for profit. So far, so good. I have been an honest girl, and Mr. Durant had been a loyal boss. You're a good girl, he said a few months ago. He told me about how his previous employees had stolen his goods and money. That justified why he was reluctant when I came with my application letter. He was blunt. I don't need another employee, he said. I was persuasive because I needed the job, and too. After all, Mr. Durant needed help. I never knew he had diabetes until my second month into the job when I saw him jabbing himself with insulin at the thigh. I got the job at his place because I always rewrite the same application letter and drop it in his mailbox every day. He must have been tired of tearing papers. I should have considered other options, but I knew older adults are the nicest, and they don't like sacking young girls like myself. After a while, I saw a message from Mr. Durant, and he wanted me to come for an interview tomorrow afternoon. I branched at his place after school the following day, and there was no interview per se. Mr. Durant just took me around the store, and he told me where I could find the goods and showed me the restroom and other stuff. The store was quite more extensive than I thought. After introducing me to the store, he gave me a t-shirt. With Durant's Need Store written on it, he gave me an employee's badge with my name already inscribed. Welcome to Durant's place, he said and shook my hands. Everything was faster than I had thought. I was happy I got myself the job. I needed it so much, and now I was sure finances might not be a limiting factor when my admission came. I thanked Mr. Durant. He asked me to call him Joe now. Thank you, Mr. Durant, I replied. He smiled and said, well done. He gave me some laid-down rules. There were no rules, to be candid. He just wanted to make it as official as possible. Some of what he said was that nothing must miss unless they're stolen. I should show up as early as possible and leave by 9 p.m. I was okay with everything he said. Mr. Durant doesn't have to leave the store, and his home is just behind the store. There is this door at the end of the store. I had never entered his place, and I have no reason to because Mr. Durant spends almost the whole day in the store. He only goes into the bath and changes his clothes. After working with Mr. Durant for a month, he awarded me the Employee of the Month. Who else will he give it to? I am the only one that works there. After awarding me, he let me know that I was the only person he had presented with the award. He had never awarded any other person, not once. My diligence convinced him. I was proud of myself. After working at Mr. Durant's, I found out that it wasn't as easy as I had believed it to be. A sales rep in a store at the center of the town is as busy as a bank in the city. I got tired after every day. I wonder how Mr. Durant had been coping. Even with the stress, I have been punctual to date. I gave it all my best because I didn't want to lose the job, and more so, I received tips from the customer. Some made mention that I am pretty faster in responding to them compared with Mr. Durant. You can't blame the older man, and it is normal for him to be slow at that age. I was the best help Mr. Durant could get. From then, he had been rewarding me with the award to date. It is not a big deal, and I had a cartoon full of the awards at home. There is no place to hang them anymore in my room. I am tired of the award now, and I had already lost count. He cooked for himself and me most of the time. I don't take supper at home anymore because I would have eaten at Mr. Durant's until this night, the night of Thanksgiving. Mr. Durant had traveled to his son's place the day before and left me in charge since we were now on holiday. I was reluctant to go home because something had happened, and home wasn't as fun as it was when my mom's younger sister, her husband, and the twins had come to spend the holiday with us. Jake and Fred, my younger brothers, were not the best hosts. Mr. Durant's store is the perfect excuse for me not to go home until late in the night. Once I got home, I said my greetings and straight to my room. That had been the norm until this night.
I am regretting coming home already, and I should have gone to Hope's place.
Hope is my one and only friend. Her place is just 3 houses away from Durant's Need store. She visited the store often, even before I became Mr. Durant's employee. Now that I work there, it gives her more reason to come. She does come to help me with sales and keep my company at the same time. The effort potentiates my productivity. For more reason, Mr. Durant is fond of me. I usually go to her place to do my assignment and science project before heading home. But that wasn't the case tonight. I just wanted to go home and eat. I was so hungry. I would have gotten myself a box of cereals and milk if not for The mom said, "Today, we eat together like a big family." My dad is not a fan of association, but I don't know what my mom had fed him that night. He was so optimistic about eating together. I knew for sure, and this dinner was to solve the taboo the family just found out. I wasn't aware of what had happened, and I wanted to eat. Is that hard to ask for? Jake, who was the youngest, is the weird one in the house. I don't understand how he pretended nothing was happening in the house. He wasn't interested in the family dinner, and nobody could convince him into it, not even Dad. Sometimes, I love to be like him, but I am not just capable of doing such things, maybe because I am feminine. That night, I was holding the fork but couldn't touch my pie since Mr. Givenchy had found himself a reason to leave us at the table. I need something to make me leave the table. I was not involved in the mess, and I still wonder why my stomach had to suffer for it. I looked at Jake, whose head was still on the table. The boy would love to disappear. At the same time, I was in the kitchen with Mom when I went to get myself a box of cereals before she stopped me. She told me that Jake had not left him since morning. I was sorry for him because he was my younger brother. I tried advising him about his attitude with women in the past, but he always says he knows what he is doing. Now, he understands he doesn't know anything, and he has no idea. My pity for him soon changed to anger because he is the reason why I can't eat this night, and can't leave the table in my room and do something else before I sleep off. Thanksgiving night soon became a confusing night at our place. Thanksgiving night in my house is not the day to give thanks. I had longed for this night, and this is the only day I get to eat pumpkin pie. I like pumpkin pie, and it is my favorite. I had made plans with Mum on how the pie must look. Pie looks like I had planned with Mum, but I might not eat it. Mrs. Givenchy, my mom's sister, is absent-minded. For sure, she's seated, but you can quickly tell she's not with us. It is embarrassing for her. She had lost her face, her daughters had embarrassed her, and Mr. Givenchy is not understanding. Why did this have to happen? It concerns me, but right now, I want to fill my stomach. This is a fundamental cause for the family, but I can think of the pumpkin pie that I can't eat in front of me. Leah and MY were the most confused individuals in the room. They had lost their face. The two are sitting at my two sides, but I am avoiding looking at their face. I feel uncomfortable. They are my longed-for cousins, and now we have met, but we can't enjoy the time. I know we might not see again. Mr. Givenchy will do everything to stop them from coming. They won't want to come even if they are permitted to do so. This family is messed up already. Jake and I are the two with no compromised personalities among the family members. Jake is not concerned about the whole event, but I want to eat. My dad was cracking some stupid jokes before my mom shut him up. Now, he just placed his head in his palm. My dad is not the quiet one, but now he is as quiet as the graveyard. No one made a noise. Our dinner had not been this silent until today. I didn't know what had happened, and Mom didn't say much. But Jake hinted to me about the uproar while I was busy working at Durant's place. How I wish he didn't update me. I would have lackadaisically eaten the meal. Before anyone could stop me from eating, I would have gulped a few slices. But now my hunger is mixed with emotions. Jake was not emotional at all, and the guy was enjoying his time. He has always been the bad boy of the house, but today it is his time to prove that there is a worse. How I wish I should just stay in the store, sleep there perhaps. While at the dining table, my mind went back to the event at the store earlier today. A customer came to buy a couple of goods. He took some extra stuff and tucked them in his jacket's pocket. He got to the counter and placed all the goods in the cart on the table. I gave him the price for the goods, then I asked him for the rest. "Your money is $60, sir. Will you be paying for the rest of the goods?" I asked. Which other goods are you talking about? He laughed in return. I replied calmly, the ones in your jacket's pocket. I can help you get them out if you don't mind, and I will love it if you respect yourself, sir. I said, calmly proud of myself. The people in the queue had started looking at the man with a funny face. Oh, he said, I had almost forgotten, he said as he brought out the stuff. The people in the queue applauded my sharpness. Little did they know that there were CCTVs at every store corner. I grinned at their ignorance. Mr. Durant will be proud of me for that. More than that, I am proud of myself. Juliet. A voice snapped me out from the only thing I had enjoyed since I had gotten home. Why are you smiling? Mrs. Givenchy asked. Who is the boy? She asked again. Which boy? I responded, quite shocked with the questions. The boy you're thinking of that is making you smile, she replied. You are old enough to have a boyfriend, so don't be ashamed, she continued. So, your two daughters are also old enough to screw one guy. I said to myself, that would have been a very nasty thing to say, and my mom won't be pleased with that. I responded to her views by just smiling. She smiled back. Just a call from hope where Mr. Durant will be appreciated at this point in time. I don't know how to cook a lie. My mom knows I don't have any science projects to do since I had finished them 2 weeks ago. I should have gone camping. I didn't go because Hope said it would be boring. She said the last year's camp she attended was nothing to write home about. It was a total waste of her time. I should have gone anyways because Mr. Durant said he did not mind giving me the 2 weeks off, but considering Hope's experience, I changed my mind. Now, I am stuck in a Thanksgiving drama, and I am forced to play a significant role. While I was lost in my thought, Mr. Givenchy had finally returned from receiving his call. That was my boss, he said. To be precise, our company is planning to have a branch somewhere in Africa, Nigeria. And I will be heading the project, he rejoined. That was a piece of good news, but it wasn't enough to clear the cloud at the dining table. My dad congratulates him and wishes him the best of luck, and I do so myself. His wife pecked him. Leah, MYA, and Fred can't even say a thing. It was apparent the twins are happy for their dad's achievement but could not say a thing because of their current position on things, while my little brother still has his head on the table. I haven't seen his face since I got home. He has been in that position forever. Is he crying, or he is just ashamed? Pumpkin pie is not really his thing. That is, there are a few bowls of noodles on the table. He can't eat them anymore, too, because they would have been cold. Oh, that reminds me what time it is. I raised my head up to check the wall clock hanging on the wall towards the living room. I can't believe my eyes, it is just 10 minutes to 10. So, I have been at this table for just 20 minutes. It looked like 3 hours to me already. Why is the time so slow? How can I get myself away from the mess I am finding myself in? I looked at Jake. He seems to be enjoying himself. His eyes are glued to the TV, and sometimes he presses his phone. I would have loved to press my phone now, too, only that Mom said, no phone at the dining. I sighed. Everybody looked in my direction, but no one said a thing. It is normal to sigh at this moment. That has been the most common means of communication since I got back from work. The only person found laughing is Jake, and no one can tell him to stop. Not even Dad. He is on a league of his own. He had been the different one among us since he was little. He has no regard for Fred and me until recently. He fought a lot at school and does not care about the principal reports of him. He loves to be alone. You can't enter his rooms unless you get his knocking code right, not even Dad. Mom is the only one left out of that criterion. He loves his privacy. He feels like he does not really fit in with the family, and that everyone does not really like him. I will look like that if you're always the subject at every family meeting. He is used to being left alone, and today, no one can force him to join the awkward family moment. I never wished to be in his shoes for once, but today I would have appreciated it. The pumpkin pie is cold, the bowl of noodles is cold, and Mr. Givenchy is still yet to say his remark on Thanksgiving Day. Fred is still yet to raise his head, and my mom and her sister are ready to clear the table. No Thanksgiving right on Thanksgiving night, I said to myself. I should have bought a few burritos before heading home. I didn't because I am saving for college. No, here I am, no food nor happiness on a Thanksgiving night because my aunt, her husband, and the twins came visiting. This is the worst Thanksgiving ever, and all blame to the twins and Fred. I am not involved in this mess, and I don't want to. I don't even know how it started, although Fred hinted to me about the progress, I warned him, but he neglected my warning because he wanted to satisfy his urge. Urge satisfied, mess showed up. What a night, isn't it? Hope had said she would call me. I am here expecting her call, but maybe the girl is enjoying herself, or the babe had slept off. The girl can sleep a lot. When we were in elementary school, we were asked to say our hobby. I remembered saying mine was playing video games. I am no more a fan of video games. But my friend said her hobby is sleeping. Every other kid laughed at her. She was really ashamed of herself. But before the day ended, my friend still slept in class. That is my hope for you. Ah still enjoys sleeping to date. Maybe that is why I am her only friend. We both don't have the luxury of time to share. We are a perfect fit for each other. She sleeps a lot, I work a lot. I helped my mom and her sister clean up. Since no one was eating and really cared about the food, I took some slices. And I headed straight to my room, leaving my mom and her sister to wash the dishes. With what happened, I expected my mom and her sister to resolve it with a big argument, but it seems nothing can come in between the two sisters. Good for them, unlike my siblings, a small toy can be a good reason for them to exchange blows. My dad and Mr. Givenchy are outside talking like a man to man. I am in my room upstairs, looking at them below. I was checking on them to avoid all kinds of havoc. If their men's talk turns to punch exchange, I can quickly call upon their wives to resolve it. Now, I have all the time for myself. I have the piece of pumpkin pie I had been craving, and I can now chat with my phone. I opened my phone, and I saw 2 messages from Hope. What? I didn't notice the notification sound. Oh, my phone is still silent. It is late already, and I can't go out anymore. I enjoyed the pumpkin pie. I need to get myself a cup of fruit juice. I went downstairs to the kitchen. I got myself the juice. Mom and her sister are still enjoying each other's company. Fred is now in the living room with his phone. I guessed he is working on his video blog. Jake is still busy with the drama series that will end in less than an hour. Mia and MYA are reading a book. Everyone seems to be minding their business. Jake saw me and came close to me. He sipped part of the juice and followed me to my room. This is funny, Jake has never entered my room, and neither had I entered him since his 10th birthday. It has been 5 years since then, and now he wanted to enter my room. Of course, he's always welcome. He's my little brother. We entered the room, and he asked me, "Are you interested in knowing what happened?" He asked, "Haven't you told me already?" I responded, "You really need to know some parts," he said as if he was about to tell me a mystery about the ancient world. This is what had caused the moody Thanksgiving celebration at the dining table earlier this night. Fred is just 17, though, although he is just 11 months younger than me. We are kind of close, but not one of us is close with Jake, who does things differently. Fred opened up quickly to me until when puberty started setting in, we got ashamed of sharing some physiological changes with one another. I got closer to Mom since she is of the same gender as me while he found comfort in the arms of Dad. I started experiencing puberty changes before he did. We first noticed my sudden increase in the breast. Before I didn't mind wearing panties with Fred around, then I stopped. I told my mom that it is normal for me to experience such change. She said I am becoming a woman. I don't want to become a woman, I usually tell myself then. Then a few weeks after, Menard showed up. Then, I needed to start using the pad and the likes. Fred was in my room when he had his first wet dreams. Had he been fantasizing about me? That increased our distance. We soon saw those changes as usual, and we reunited. Fred respected my privacy, but he didn't care about his. To date, he is the only person that opens his door. You don't have to knock before entering. He is a simple boy, to be honest. As Fred grew, his urge increased. He started experimenting with different things. He started clearing his web history for no reason in particular. I wanted to ask him about that, but I later found out that he had been doing the guy's thing. That wasn't enough, he started getting laid. Although he hasn't brought any girl home yet, I noticed his game with other girls since we are in the same class. And Hope once told me that Fred had approached her, but she declined because of our friendship. Hope has been a good friend. She is the most decent girl in the class. I am not as decent as I look, but I draw lines. I believe Fred has had enough of the schoolgirls. He is still a cool-headed boy. I think that is what the girls fall for. Nobody really shares his stories at school. All he has done are in secret. Sometimes, he told me about some of his fish. Fred started venturing into online sexing and sex chatting. He met several ladies, younger or older, that are not interested in a serious relationship like him. They just want to get laid until their classmates expect a relationship. While on his course the web dating, he met a girl with two personalities. He told me about the strange girl that can be naughty today and calm tomorrow. I told him to step out of that relationship, that the lady might be playing with his feelings. Do I look like I have any feelings? He would ask. That's true, you can be getting laid every week with your feelings attached. He just satisfied his unsatisfiable urge. He told me that what really attached him to that lady was that she looked like my doppelganger. I checked for myself and realized the lady looked like me. He traveled to meet the lady, and he got laid, mission completed. But this time, he wanted to get more. That was when it became real. This time the lady wasn't talking naughty as the first time, and he didn't really enjoy it. He told me everything. I could say that the lady might not be in the mood since I am not experienced. This morning, my mom told us that his sister and her family would be coming to celebrate Thanksgiving with us. I had seen the sister but had never seen her husband and the twins. We were all anticipating the coming of our cousins. I left for Mr. Durant's store for the day's job while my brothers helped arrange the house for the comfort of our guests. I closed the store by 9:09 p.m. sharp and took a taxi home rather than trekking as I am used to. I got home. My mom was moody yet preparing for the feast. The house was unnecessarily quiet. Then, Jake just me that the girl Fred had been meeting recently is twins and they are our cousins. How can this be resolved? How did they find out? Do you know how?